DG coming today, or do we know?
Do you want to text her? Good afternoon. It is just after 3 p.m. Thank you for holding on until I return to my seat. I am calling our town council work session for January 20th to order. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I will now ask Reagan for his manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor Clement. Full agenda today, obviously. We've got a number of action items to go over to begin the year, beginning with the review of our fiscal year 25 audit. As you will recall, this is running a little bit late, but not because of finance staff nor our auditors this year. We were prepared to bring this before you in October, but unfortunately with the federal government shutdown, they did not get out some guidance documents that were necessary in order to do the single audits that we had qualified for this year or were required to do. So finally, that all occurred. You were sent the draft audit back in late December. I'm sure you all spent your Christmas breaks reviewing all of those numbers and pages. But we do have Leanne Bagasala with Malden and Jenkins with us this afternoon to go over the audit and its findings, all of which were pretty positive, I'd like to say, not to jump ahead. But we'll go through that and then ask for your adoption of that audit. Beyond that, we'll talk about just a couple of budget amendments, two of which are tied to FEMA reimbursement and Tropical Storm Chantal. We've got an annexation just to kick off, a couple of written decisions that BJ will go over from the planning staff, the hazard mitigation plan that has been 18 months to a couple of years in the making, and a request that we give that adoption. And then we'll talk a little bit about utility late fees and shutoffs. That will end the action for the afternoon. Then we've got just a discussion around outdoor special event permitting that we'd like to get some direction from council on. And then we'll update you on the Whitehall site. BJ will do his planning department update. We'll go into roundtable and we'll be wrapped up. So any questions about the agenda itself? If not, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the mayor and we can begin the process.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right, moving on to our action items, we have the review and request adoption of our audit. Is it just you, Chess? Okay. Just make sure the microphone gets turned on.
As Reagan said, we were a little delayed in getting our final presentation, but I'm going to let Leanne go through her PowerPoint, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
My name is Leanne Bagasala. I'm an audit partner at Malden & Jenkins. This is our first year as your auditors, your external auditors. And just to echo, the town manager, you weren't considered late for your audit at all. The extension this year the local government commission had was February 12th, but I did not want to drag it out any longer because we did, finish the audit in October. So this coming up fiscal year, we're going to make sure that we meet that 12/31 deadline that we have, but hopefully the idea is to get it out before Halloween, just kind of like the usual kind of time frame that you guys kind of have wanted or needed, so that we're not keeping the finance staff preoccupied with the audit. So your presentation tonight, I did want to go through who your audit team is, just to give you an idea of the people that were on your audit.
It was on the, yeah.
It's in the back.
Okay, it's in your packet. Okay. I'm going to go through your audit opinions as well as your compliance reports that we have for the federal and state grants. And then there's a couple required communications that I'll go through, and then a couple GASB standards I want to let you know about. But if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me. On the next slide, you'll get an idea about who Maudits & Jenkins are. We are a firm that has been in business for over 100 years. We're headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, but the Raleigh office is the office that served your audit. Overall, from a practice standpoint, this data is actually old. We merged with another firm, or they merged into us December 1st. We now have over 750 employees and over 100 partners. A third of our practice still, though, is local government audits, and we do a number of governments. In North Carolina, we actually do Moore County here locally. But I served as your engagement partner. I was ultimately the one responsible for signing your audit opinion and just leading the audit. You also have a second partner, our quality control review partner. His name was Tim Lyons. He makes sure that I do my job and give you a proper audit. And then you had Chad, who served as your engagement manager, which was really funny because that was your previous audit director. But a lot of people served on the audit overall. The next slide is your audit opinion. This is the opinion that's at the front of your financial statements. It basically says that our responsibility under the audit is to perform your audits in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as well as government auditing standards. We consider the internal control structure of the town for the purposes of expressing our opinion, but this opinion that's at the front of your financial statements is not over internal controls. But our objective is to provide reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, that your basic financial statements are free of material misstatement. But ultimately, the financial statements that you have presented are management's responsibility. On the report of the basic financial statements, we issued an unmodified or a clean audit opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide that your financial statements present fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles as well as government auditing standards. But our responsibility does not extend beyond that report. The other opinions that we have in the back of your financial statements, one is called a Yellow Book opinion or opinion over government auditing standards. In that opinion, you'll note it's an unmodified or a clean audit opinion. It basically says there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we identified as part of the audit. So it's a clean audit in terms of reviewing the audit in terms of government auditing standards. We also have an opinion related to compliance with the Uniform Grant Guidance in the state of North Carolina State Single Audit Implementation Act. That's where we go in and we test your federal and state programs. This year we audited the ARPA funding as well as the Clean Water State Revolving Funds. And then lastly, we also audited the PAL Bill funds, which is a state program. And we expressed 2 audit opinions, and those are both unmodified or clean audit opinions. And no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies were identified in those 3 programs that we audited. So overall, you received 4 audit opinions, and they were all clean audit opinions. The next couple of slides are some required communication. One thing we do, though, as your first year auditor, and we will do it every year, is we do, as we're going through the audit, we're looking at processes and internal controls and how can the town improve on those? Not that there's anything that raises to the level of a significant deficiency or material weakness, but here's just some recommendations that we have. And so we issue what's called a management letter as part of the audit that just had a couple of things that, they're not concerns where I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to have a bad audit opinion or anything like that. Just some things that we think you can, improve upon. And so those were documented in a letter, and the town's already starting to address some of those comments that we had. One of them will be your next action item came as part of the audit. So within your financial statements, just note that in the disclosures of the financial statements in note 1, all the significant accounting policies that the town has are documented within the basic footnotes. We review those as part of our audit, and we didn't have any issues with the significant policies that the town has. In the current year, though, the town did implement GASB Statement 101 related to compensated absences and GASB 102 related to certain risk disclosures, which is probably a blur to you all. It wasn't material to the town, but just something that we need to let you know that they're properly implementing standards each year. Also within the financial statements, there are a lot of management estimates and judgments. Some of those estimates and judgments are just based on management's day-to-day activity, looking at historical trends and how things have come about. And some of those estimates are actuarially determined like some of your pension type stuff. So we review those estimates, and we had no issues with the judgments and estimates that the town has made. The next slide will tell you that from a relationship standpoint, we received full cooperation from the town. Management, we had no issues with getting the things that we needed, and we asked a whole lot of stuff, especially in a first-year audit. I'm sure it was very fun. But we had no issues and no disagreements with the town. As part of the audit, we do require the town to sign what's called a management representation letter, and we get that from everybody in order to issue. It basically says that all the information that's been given to us is complete and accurate. Also during the audit and throughout the year, we have to make sure that the town isn't consulting other accountants. We want to be the primary source of anything, any questions that they have, not just for the audit, but like, how do I implement this standard? Or, hey, this is going on, what do you think? We always want to be that person of contact. And so we're letting you know, we're not aware that, management consulted any other accountants. From a significant issue or disclosure perspective, there was no significant issues discussed during the audit that I think you should be aware of. I think your management discussion and analysis, which is in your financial statements, give you a lot of insight of what happened during the year, what are the numbers, and what's to come in the future. From an audit adjustment standpoint, when we receive the town's books and records, during the audit, sometimes there could be journal entries that need to be posted as just part of going through the financial close and audit perspective. All of those were posted during the audit. We did have what we call one pass audit adjustment, and this is related to including payroll benefit expenses like FICA taxes and the town's compensated absence of liability. But that's just basically saying your liability is understated a little bit by $65,000, and we determined that to be immaterial to the town, and so it wasn't something that we required the town to post. The next disclosure here is that in your financial statements, there's several pages of footnote disclosures. As part of our audit, we review the disclosures to make sure they're neutral, consistent, and provide clarity. We didn't have any issues with that review of disclosures. And the third item is our legal paragraph that we have to let you know about. Whenever you give away your financial statements, you upload to software, you provide them to different agencies. Do not add to the financial statements or take away from the financial statements because our opinion covers only what's in there. And then the last disclosure we have is that Mauldin & Jenkins is independent of the town in their financial reporting process. From a new disclosure perspective, we actually were talking about this recently. There are two new pronouncements that are going to be applicable for the fiscal year 2026. And those disclosures, I'm not going to read the entire blurb to you, but they're not going to be too material to the town, but we will make sure that they're properly implemented, as part of our audit. We'll work through those during our planning phase and then make sure that they're properly disclosed in the financial statements. There's other projects that are going on, but I swear this is the exact same slide that I had last year. They're not moving very fast. But anytime there's any projects going on in GASB, if they become relevant and they become standards that are issued, we will always work with the town to make sure they get the proper education that they need on those standards and then they're properly adopted. But I will not bore you with these projects because they're not law yet or not a GASB standard yet. And then the last slide I have is that as an additional service to our clients, we do offer free quarterly CPE training. It's sometimes up to 32 hours a year. We do it quarterly, usually 6 to 8 hours a day. That's additional service that we offer for anyone that needs continuing education, and that's free of charge. And this slide just gives you information how to get added to that if you would like to learn all about GASB pronouncements and fun things like that.
Sounds really fun.
Is that,
It's not anything that we knew about this year, right? This is brand new. I had a question mark actually. Did anybody take advantage of this yet?
Yes, we've broken that out.
You guys went. Okay, great, awesome.
so you all have CE requirements that can be fulfilled with this? That's good, good. Leanne, thank you. I know it's a big undertaking, especially the first year audit, and I appreciate the thoroughness with which you've gone through our statements and working with staff. I appreciate staff, you guys being responsive and having everything organized for them to do so. Do you all have other questions for our auditor?
Can you speak to me like I don't think I feel like my mic's not on, but can you speak to me like I'm a fifth grader? And when you talked about the liability that was understated, explain to me exactly what that means?
Sure. So that liability is called compensated absence. It's the liability for people's vacation time that would have to be paid out if they were to use it.
Okay.
So whatever bank of vacation time that they have as of 6:30, the town goes through and says, okay, well, this person has 80 hours. Their rate is $20, and that equivalates to what they have on their books. But as a new auditor coming in, I'm like, hey, you can't just put salaries in there. You have to put their benefits in there too.
Okay.
And so we're basically saying that the FICA, the Medicare, Social Security wasn't included in that liability. So it's understated a little bit. And so instead of going back and restating the prior year financial statements, we didn't think it was material enough. So the plan in 2026 is to add it to the liability in 2026. So it'll be fixed going forward. But it's not, we don't consider it material to the user of the financial
Concerned.
statements. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Ask one question, make one statement?
Sure.
On slide 9, I'm the newest guy on the council, so that's why I have the question.
Okay.
But you guys are amazing, and I appreciate it. But it said, I was just curious, who selects the audit opinion topics? Is that the town? Is that you? Or do you guys just throw it in a wheel and pull it out like Russian roulette?
I'm trying to figure out what page 9.
Slide 9, it just said, I'm sorry, slide 7. 7, there it is. It just, and then you said, maybe I read.
Oh, what grants we audit?
Yeah, just out
Oh,
of curiosity.
Yeah, so every year we get what's called a schedule of federal and state awards from the town. It just says what is all
Awesome.
the money that they've spent. And there's actually strategic or a methodology for picking grants, we group them into what we call a type A or type B program, and it's based on risk and then also rotation. So like in the current year, you just had to have ARPA tested, and clean waters had to be tested because they were over a certain threshold. And then we had to test Powell bill because we needed some coverage. There's a coverage percentage that we have to get. So those will change every year. So as you keep getting different grant funding every single year, you'll see those programs will potentially change.
Awesome. And then my one statement refers to 9. As a new guy, it is really awesome to hear that you guys had a great working relationship with the staff, because I'll be honest with you, that's been my experience since December, I guess, 9th. So I think that when we work together, both inside and outside agencies, we really gain a lot of traction. So I do appreciate that from our staff and you guys being so willing to work with us. So thanks a lot.
I try
And
not to be
for
difficult.
taking my question.
On that note, I would like to offer, because they're so kind to write in here that they got along with us great. But honestly, Tess and Brooke and their staff do the heavy lifting on this, particularly in year 1, getting the data off to a new group. And I did not receive any complaints along the way about Leanne or her team being difficult. The portal seemed to have been a real positive addition from the past audit relationship and experience we were having. So everything really did go quite well with that. I'm happy to report, which is always a little trepidation in year 1 of, you sign these multi-year contracts and you hope they go well. So I won't say everybody's looking forward to the audit next year, because that just sounds wrong, but no concerns. So.
And to speak to your question, when you switch to any kind of audit firm, doctor, I don't even care, but the finding that she found, it was something that we had been recording it like that since before I was here, and this is just something that she brought is just a different requirement with their firm.
So it's a new format.
It's just a requirement with their firm versus what 4 of us wanted.
Great.
Yeah. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Were there other questions for staff or Leanne? Thank you so much. We appreciate the work you did for the Southern Pines and staff. Thank you guys again for clean financial statements and letting us know what's going on.
Big kudos to Brooke and to Tess, because they are wonderful with the rest of the finance team. Thank you.
As I've said, I think about multiple departments before, it's the hard work you guys do that makes our job easier. So thank you all. All right, moving on to Resolution 1143, modifying the capitalization threshold for leases and subscription-based information.
So this is a request from the finance.
Do we need an adoption of it? Like a motion?
I was like, I think that we need to at least make a motion.
Mac, do you need us to like formally approve it, or? Oh, Oh, okay, she's doing it now. Thank you.
Yes.
So is it too late in the game to add, this was the most acronym-laden sheet that I've ever seen, so out of the ballpark, way to go, guys. But I didn't ever see, even in the PowerPoint that was just shared with us, the meaning of GASB, which apparently is Governmental Accounting Standard Board, which I understand is an independent entity, that it's now a recommendation from the auditors that, well, and also a recommendation from the world that we be a part of that. Would it be, before we do a motion, would it be okay to request that the meaning of GASB be included in the resolution for people who are perhaps somewhat as confused as I was trying to figure that one out? So just in the second whereas, in accordance with GASB, if we just put in parentheses, like everything else is identified as to what the acronyms stand for. If we could say Governmental Accounting Standard Board,
We can put that in parentheses and then it.
fabulous,
Okay.
yeah. Because this is
Next item.
really difficult to wade through. Again,
And then there's 11.
kudos.
We're talking about the
On
budget.
Google, searching it.
No, I went higher than Google this time.
Love it.
I didn't see a
Just to be
resolution
clear, I
for
think
this.
you may be looking at a resolution that
Next
is
item.
next on the agenda. There isn't actually a resolution to adopt
Okay.
or
Oh,
accept
okay,
the
right,
audit.
it's
That's just
true.
done by motion.
That's right, okay, all right, great. So you just want to, yes, all right.
So we can clean it up
Clean it
for
up
the
when we get
future
there.
items on the agenda, but this is
My
just simply a motion.
apologies. Okay, so we're just doing a motion to adopt the audit report, right? So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, all those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. It's funny because, so GASB is, I feel like, referenced so many times in the audit as well, that I was like, well, I mean, I guess we could clarify it everywhere. But, okay, so 1143 is where we're just going to have that added. Tess, you're going to update that?
Yeah, we'll update
Okay.
that.
All right, and since we've already started that, did you have anything else that you wanted to mention about,
But the auditor was referencing
Right,
is to
right.
raise that threshold to $50,000 just because the amount of staff time that we use to analyze these subscription-based agreements, it's,
I was like, the subscription-based agreements is fairly new anyway, and I feel like we
It
have
is.
spent a lot of time talking about it.
yes,
Okay.
we bring a lot of budget amendments forward to you, council, that may or may not be affected if we raise it to 50.
We initially chose to treat it as other capital, thus the 20 and 20. But
Okay.
when you're buying capital, it's pretty straightforward as a purchase price. These things are a lot more complicated.
All right, council, do you all have questions about the capitalization threshold? Okay, is there a motion to approve resolution 1143?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1143 with the updated Gatsby definition.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tess. Do you want to stay for the budget amendments? So we have,
People like to sit on the
I know,
sideline.
you keep trying to leave us. So we have ordinance 3158 and 3159, the budget amendments regarding reimbursement. Do you have anything to present, or do you want to just ask for questions?
I mean, we have what
There's stuff in
we
the
submitted to
packet.
FEMA, but it's a little, it's not divest, because there's an amendment for general fund and there's amendment for water sewer. And a lot of the reports that we have, everything was together and it wouldn't be very pretty to show.
And as your staff memo in your packet suggests, these are not the final ones. These are the
Correct.
ones we kind of know at this point. There's a rather large outstanding item which involves the reconstruction / relocation of the sewer line that failed as a result of the Longleaf Dam failure. But that's going through some engineering now because the Longleaf Dam had to go through some engineering before we relocated that line. So that'll be another future budget amendment. For those that haven't looked at this for some time or maybe looking at a budget amendment for the first time, the reason that they're marked as increases twice, and I only say this because I've had the question at times in the past. One of those is an expense line item, and one of them is a revenue line item. So you're showing the money in from FEMA, and you're showing the money going back out to the expenses. That's why they're both increases. That has thrown some people off in the past. So
Written does it have to be written this way, or could it be written as revenue increase, expense increase?
In the account description, we could put a parenthesis and say which one's the expenditure and which one's the revenue, just for
That
clarification.
might make it easier for,
Okay.
I mean, I know that you all are here with us, but if somebody's opening up our packet and trying to understand it, that might help.
In this particular one, and I don't know that it's always the case, but I mean, it is listed as relief revenue and relief expenses specifically. It says
Okay, I
disaster
see
relief
it.
expenses, and it
Under the
says
line
FEMA
item.
disaster relief
Okay.
revenue,
Okay,
so,
that actually clarifies it. So yeah, it's nothing else is needed. I'm just looking at the headers. That's perfect.
okay.
Okay. Were there other questions, or is there a motion for these?
I'll move to approve ordinances 3158 and 3159.
Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. What's the timeline on reimbursement from FEMA?
We heard about one unit that submitted for reimbursement back in 2020 that's just getting it now.
Okay.
So it just depends. I think we're already starting to see our requests move through the portal, so I'm hopeful that we'll get it before June 30th, because it does create an issue with our CEFSA with that grant testing that she was just talking about. It will affect that.
And then for the sewer relocation, because of the dam, the Longleaf Dam, do we have an idea of how much that is, or when we'll be ready to submit?
We just got plans on the Longleaf Dam, I believe it was last week. James received those, so he has sent those off to our engineers now so,
Okay.
yeah, it's still got a little bit of time.
Okay. Very good. Are there other questions? All right, Tess, we'll let you go now. Thank you.
You'll stay for annexation?
All right, we have Resolution 1142, directing the clerk to investigate annexation petition received under GS 160A-31. Beth, do you have any other information, or?
This is
Reagan?
step one.
Okay. Okay, and we're directing you to investigate, so I don't imagine there's questions?
Yeah, the next thing you'll see then is setting a hearing, and then you'll ultimately set a hearing for the following month.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 1142?
So moved.
Is there, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, and the written decision for the Oaks Major Subdivision, MAPP-05-25. Director Grieve, do we have you on this item?
Yes, Mayor, these are two written decisions back to back, one for the Oaks Major Subdivision, as you just mentioned, that was approved at the regular meeting on December 9th. This is just the standard written decision documenting the findings of fact. It is the basis for the approval. If you'll recall, this is the preliminary plat off of Country Club Drive. And so, again, this is kind of the last step.
Okay. And for our newest council members, some of what we do will go through our decision at council, and then it just becomes a written decision. And if you look through it, and it seems to reflect everything we talked about, we are just approving that it is written the way it was discussed.
Yep.
All right. Are there any questions on the written decision? The one for the Oaks? No? Is there a motion?
So moved. Thank you, Bill.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That was item E. We didn't do them together, right? That
No,
was just for
correct.
E.
Yeah, we'll do them
Okay.
separate.
Good job.
All right, well, here's another one, straight to you.
You got it.
We have a written decision for Trimble Plant Road, PDP. Director Grieve, I feel like at some point we should ask you, Mr. Goodman's question, if the written decision has been run by the applicant on both of these.
Was for the Oaks. It has been emailed to the applicant twice for the second one, the Trimble Plant Road PDP. We have requested response. However, typically you need written consent to conditions, and this one has no conditions. So the fact that we haven't received a response yet from Mr. Kuntz is not of a big concern to us in this case.
There's nothing that he needs to approve.
We have emailed him requesting his acknowledgement of the written decision twice, but again, we just haven't received a response. If there were conditions, we might be a little bit worried about it, but with this, there's no conditions.
Okay. I feel like this one, we set some very clear hoops for them to jump through, and I think they jumped through it, so I appreciate that they did what we requested. Are there any questions on this written decision?
Mr. Groove, do you see any reason that could become an issue or among them precedent?
No.
Okay. There's a piece of me that.
What was that question?
Well, the question is basically, my question is, if that is something that we feel strongly about giving notice to folks and wanting to hear back that they have received the notice and they are in agreement, and we now have that come up and they don't respond, have we set a precedent where it's okay to not respond and just the assumption of agreement?
I would say that if there are conditions that we're asking them to agree to,
Yeah, I understand.
and they
that.
don't respond, I would not feel comfortable writing or agree, like,
No, I understand if there were conditions,
Yeah.
I would definitely, there's just a piece of me that thinks this is a dangerous precedent to set. If you're going to allow a non-response to be an anyway,
well, so what's the worst case scenario? We have a written decision that we approve, and if they don't approve and they haven't responded, then they either
Right.
agree with what we have set forth or they don't. I think we're in charge. I'm confused about the risk that you think, what's the downside?
Sorry.
I think a disregard for a precedent we're trying very hard to set.
So, but you, so you want to put the power in their hands?
I think if we are asking, we are giving the information to people and we are asking for a bilateral, if you were, communication, and we don't get a communication, I mean, it just concerns me, because you know how I feel about sloppy. And I would like for all the ends to be tied up. And I agree with you, there's not a condition, and I hear what Mr. Grieve's saying, and I'm not opposed to it. But I do think it's important that there be a civil exchange and there'll also be a clear exchange, and that I don't want to say, well, but you approved this one without, and so you wouldn't approve ours. I see a little ball of wax here that I don't like.
I kind of agree with you, but I'm also in the vein of like, and I had to get over myself on this one. A couple weeks back, BJ made a comment about us sending information out. And people, like we sent information out to all these different agencies as per state law. And sometimes they just don't respond back.
Right.
And that's frustrating, but I don't think we can really demand or do anything. I mean, I think BJ said he sent out two to
Right.
Mr. Kuntz, so I get what you're saying. But yeah, it is
Patient.
frustrating, but I don't know
Right.
if we have the,
We're doing our due diligence, which is even if there were conditions, staff is trying to translate those conditions in the heat of the moment, during a council meeting and then afterwards during staff hours to make sure this is written appropriately. So as long as we're doing our due diligence and send it to them, if they do not agree with them after the fact that we've approved it, then they're just going to have to come back and appeal the decision. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation for them, but I think we are maintaining control by, we have written up what our staff heard. We've sent it out to hopefully give them notice that if this doesn't look right, you have a chance to respond. But if they didn't respond, we're,
And I think that's a key point. This is actually an additional step that planning staff started to take when Councilman Goodman, and it's really an opportunity for the applicant or representative of the applicant to review it and say, whoa, wait a minute, that's not how we understood this.
Right.
If they don't take the opportunity, or if they just look at it and say, nope, that's exactly what we agreed to, I absolutely empathize
You wanna
with
say
what
it
you're
right.
saying from a procedural
So,
standpoint,
right.
but
And it's
we
more-
actually didn't intend for this to become part of the procedure.
Process.
It was more of a regular question ask of staff. Staff started to send it just in case somebody didn't agree with or had interpreted your decision a little bit differently, but ultimately it is your decision. And
Yeah, I can paint a couple of scenarios very briefly that I think get at both Ann's concern as well as the mayor's point. Let's say, for example, you have a situation during the application process before it goes to public hearing where the applicant is ghosting us and just not giving us the information we need. And that happens more frequently than you'd think. Now we come to public hearing and we say, we haven't heard from them. We're not comfortable with this evening. We're missing a lot of information. We'll tell the council that, and that you've seen that happen. Another scenario would be, let's say, towards the end of the public hearing, it's a quasi-judicial item, towards the end of the public hearing, the council wishes to impose 3 conditions that the applicant is going along with, we'll say reluctantly. And there's some whispering amongst themselves, and you think they're okay with it, they nod that they're okay with it, and then afterwards, you put these 3 conditions on there, and they don't respond to us acknowledging that those are there. That is a situation where we would not be sitting here saying it's good to go, because the risk was higher. They seemed to be uncomfortable with it, and we're like, man, we want to make sure to get it in writing from them. Statute says you have to have it in writing. A lot of times, MAC will lean over and will give the direction to put something in writing at the meeting. We will get it in writing. We will scan that and make it part of the file. But I'm talking about situations where maybe it was a little confusing coming out of that night, and so we spent a few days with the dust clearing to clarify it, and then that's where former Councilman Goodman's concern really goes up in our concern list too. Let's just make sure everybody's on the same page about this. So, but because there's no conditions, this is one where, to Reagan's point, then yeah, this is an opportunity for them to look at it. Since there's no conditions, if they don't want to respond, wheels are going to keep turning.
Yeah, you essentially accepted their application as they printed it. So
Precisely.
it was-
So in today's youth, that would be considered them leaving us on open. So have you heard that?
In red, on red.
On red, or red is the new term now. They've left us on red. Darn it.
I wonder if just to protect us from a potential fight in the future, if you have emails where you've requested that and not, and been ghosted, if you will, since we're going to go with some high school language here lately. But if you've been ghosted by a developer, can we add the emails where you've asked for a response to the file?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I think with that comes the expectation that we would like to have that communication.
This one was also unique because we had a 1 week turnaround. We
Right.
usually have 2 or 3
Right.
weeks turnaround between the town council meeting and the work session. So getting it into the packet after only giving them 2 days to respond would have also created a time crunch. But to your point, we're more than happy to put emails where we don't get responses within a reasonable time.
Right, I think that's important to protect the town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to prolong this any longer, but now something stirred up me, so I've got a question. So if there are conditions, right, and we've sent out, those conditions and they see it in writing and they don't give a response back, aren't they still obligated to follow those conditions since we've sent it out, even if they don't respond?
If during the meeting they consented in writing and we have that on file, yes. The follow-up with the written decision is really a courtesy check-in to make sure the actual language is okay. If, however, we neglected to get anything in writing from them at the meeting, and then you get to the written decision and they ghost you at the written decision, our red flags are now going off and we postpone and we say, hold on a second, let's back this up before we get ourselves in trouble.
I think sending out at least when there are criteria or there are conditions, I think sending that out to them even without a response is an abundance of precaution. So I do appreciate that staff is doing that. All right.
I appreciate the conversation on the procedural goings on, but I will make a motion to approve 1142 resolution.
Second.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. PDO 625.
Oh, 625.
Sorry. Yes,
You're moving too fast for us.
that was a good conversation too. PDO 625, sorry.
Is there a second?
Still seconding.
All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now,
Work sessions.
yep. Now we're getting on to resolution 1141, adopting the Cape Fear Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So again, I think your agenda has about the lengthiest agenda presentation of what's going on of any item I've seen. But this is essentially an effort not only throughout Moore County, but surrounding counties of Chatham, Lee, Harnett, and Johnston. It's to collapse all of our hazard mitigation plans into one large regional plan. This really becomes beyond just the knowledge you gain and the research you do on your jurisdiction. This becomes a document that gets referenced back to in the unfortunate event that something does occur and there are funds to try and access or utilize. You have to have an adopted plan in place oftentimes in order to be able to access those state and federal funds. So again, this went on for some time. Chief Cameron and members of our fire department were involved in a number of the meetings. I sat through one of them that was online. And the draft plan is completed. I sent you all a link to be able to look at that because it was far too large to try to embed into a packet. And they have simply asked for all participating jurisdictions to hold a vote and acknowledge the completion of the plan and accept it, so that in the event we would have to reference the plan in an effort to obtain some mitigation funds, we would in fact be eligible to do so.
Are there questions for Manager Parsons? From a staff perspective, was there anything that you all wanted in this mitigation plan that wasn't there, or anything that
We didn't
you all
run into
disagreed
anything
on?
like that. Again,
Okay.
we've had our own plans in place for some time. We've been part of larger, more county plans. And again, this is sort of a state and federal move toward enlarging those out into larger geographic regions. So most events don't necessarily recognize political jurisdictional lines. So
Okay.
I don't know, backlash, anything negative that this would?
nothing I am aware of, and I asked that specific question of Assistant Manager Cameron before placing this on the agenda, and he's perfectly good with the plan as presented and would request its adoption.
Gotcha.
All right, unless there are other questions, I will hear a motion to adopt Resolution 1141.
Well, I move then to adopt Resolution 1141 for the Cape Fear Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, ordinance 3160, updating the town code regarding utility late fees and shutoffs.
All right. I imagine this one might take a little more discussion, but maybe I'm wrong. You may all recall, and I was not present, but there was a decision, a long conversation and decision made last fall in the face of an ongoing federal shutdown to suspend late fees for the utility accounts, in addition to shut-offs and the resulting reinstatement of service fees through December and into January. And here we sit. Part of that discussion was also sort of tracking, as we would do anyhow, but tracking the expense of that decision. You have in your packet a memo that actually tracks those expenses in the way of both foregone $6 late fees and the turnoff fees, in addition to some data relative to accounts that have not paid even $5 on their bill since such time that shutoffs have been suspended. Based upon all of that data, what I have come back with, but what we really just need from council is some direction, a suggestion that one, we go ahead and suspend the charging of a $6 late fee. Councilwoman Gray has discussed in the past brainstorming and conversations that she and I have set in the office on relative to the $6 late fee issue. We looked pretty hard at trying to move around dates on the calendar, but because the 30-day cycle of billing is pretty laid out relative to due date, shut off, printing of bills, when things get set out, moving that date then ultimately moves a whole bunch of other dates, and you really just end up with those that may have the problem of paying a bill because they don't get paid maybe till the 15th of the month. Some people get paid on the 15th and 30th. If you move it to the 16th instead of the 10th, then somebody that's on a different pay cycle has the same problem where they didn't have it when it was the 10th. So getting rid of the $6 late fee opens up the window of opportunity to hopefully schedule. We've provided multiple means of paying your bill now, including signing up where it gets charged off to a credit card or bank card. But now that opens up that window to include everything between the 10th and the 24th, whereas right now you might incur a $6 late fee if you're somebody that does get paid on the 15th, for instance. The impact of that annually, again, roughly, and it's going to be plus minus in any given year, but we're looking at roughly $48,000 or $50,000 of revenue in the utility fund. I don't want to scoff at or make fun of $48,000 or $50,000, but that is not an amount that is going to cause me to come back in April at the retreat and say, by the way, we got rid of the $6 late fee. We need another 2% increase on the utilities. It was never about the collection of the revenue as much as it was trying to promulgate payment from our customers. The shutoff is a little bit different animal. Lacking the ability to shut those accounts off, we just simply have accounts that we will not see payment on. And again, I want to be clear, and I said it at the end of my memo, relatively speaking, we have a very good set of utility customers here. I have colleagues that run other water and sewer utilities that have far more default accounts and shut-off numbers and things than what we deal with. For the most part, our residents and customers pay their bills, fortunately. Having said that, I would recommend against permanently suspending shutoffs. Even with the $20 late fee, that fee has been $20 for as long as I have been here, which is to say even previous to that. It's not something that we've done in order to be punitive as much as just trying to recapture some of the cost that not only involves the individuals that go out into the field, shut off, and then have to go back out and reinstate service, but also all of the efforts leading up to the point at which that actually occurs. You have had presentations at times from individuals talking about draconian policies or how the town is difficult, but as you've seen in the data I've provided here, we don't hit you with late fees if it's the first time you've ever been late, because stuff happens. We don't shut off in the first month you didn't make a payment. And in fact, Tess and Debbie Reynolds and town staff, in part just trying to maintain a reasonable workload for our people in the field, but in part out of recognition of utility bills and the deposits that we hold. In any given month, we won't run out and shut off an account for a $10 lacking amount or even a $40 lacking amount. So what I have done is laid out for you, and I should have prefaced all of this with what I said in the memo, which is we really need to change the code and set the policy. You just set through your audit. I don't want for Tess and her staff to be answering to a future auditor, hey, I don't see any late fees here, and your code says there's a $6 late fee. I mean, we have the motion that kind of did the temporary suspension, but if you wish to set a permanent policy moving forward, I'm asking that we go ahead and do the code amendment, and that is what can be tracked and tested by future auditors. So all I'm asking for is, right now you have before you an ordinance change that would, and if you compare it to current language, it really removed language more than it added it, but it doesn't mention a late fee whatsoever. And it does say that if you have not paid by the 25th and you are more than $100 in arrears, that you would hit a shutoff list, and then it refers back to the Appendix A, et cetera, where it has the $20 reinstatement fee, et cetera. So I've already talked with Debbie and Tess a little about that. As it is written, it's something that we can, in fact, administer, that we can enforce. You can change the $100 to $75. You can change it to $125. That's one of those things in there that could change. You could tell me, no, we want to have a late fee of something, at which point I'm going to ask whether you want that to continue to be on the 10th or some other date. Some other date we'll want to get back to you about what that means relative to calendars. And Councilwoman Gray knows what I'm talking about with that, because we sat down and went through the calendar. But this is really just an effort to now revisit what was done in October, and it was done in the face of a lot of challenges with federal shutdowns and concerns about who may not be receiving pay even though they were working. And that was all understandable, and it may be something I guess we could be seeing again by the end of this month unless something changes. But again, we now have some real data on what that means on a lost basis for a month. We have some real data on the accounts that simply won't pay in the face of. And I want to also be clear, it came out to 161 accounts to date. Some of those are going to be people that just flat moved out. and we won't know that until we start going about trying to collect things. But a handful of them have not shown additional usage. For instance, maybe in the month of December, they stopped paying in November, and we didn't see it in December. So staff's going to have a little bit of catching up to do. This month's shut-offs are going to be a little bit of a challenge, I'm sure, but we'll get there. And all we're looking to do is try to set, again, a fair policy that can be enforced and audited cleanly moving forward, and just need council's direction on these items. And I'm going to stop rambling and talking and take any questions you may have or motions to accept the ordinance change as.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Do we know, I mean, just trying to pick $7,500, whatever, is there, I know everything's different, is there an average monthly water bill, a balance? Like just if,
Tessa shaking
there
her
is,
head.
but
I had anticipated that because if you go back to a budget, I always use the 5,000 gallons per month number and such,
Okay.
and I don't have it offhand. Tess, do you have something off the top of your head? Okay, we'll have that for you.
And I guess the thing of that, so I was just wondering, like, is the $100 roughly 2 months? Because that's our break even. Then to my other question, which may determine, do I want to raise that number higher or make it lower? For these accounts that are, these 161 accounts, we don't think we're ever going to get them. What steps do we take? Do we hire a collection?
Well, I want to be
firm?
clear. I'm
What
not
is the town-
suggesting we will never get them. I'm suggesting if we don't do a shut-off, we may never get them.
So the ones that are shut off and it still doesn't get a response, they've moved. Do we make any effort to collect them, or is it just, oh, well?
So, and Tess can fill in the blanks on this. There are instances, number one, if they come in and try to sign up at a different address, we'll try and collect at that point in time. Number two, there is a debt set-off program that we're able to sometimes access. If somebody has a state income tax return, we can actually put, I guess, what amounts to a lien against it, where we'll see some funds off of that.
Yes, we'll get the funds before they get their tax returns. It'll get deducted. But we can only go back 3 years. So if they don't file taxes for 3 years, then we're done. We have to write it off. And again, what Reagan said, if they move out of town and then move back in town, we won't turn on their new service until they pay the old bill in full. But that's if we got a proper social security number or some other way to positively identify that that's the exact person. So it's, if the wife comes in and the husband had the old bill, there's nothing we can do.
Away those
Yeah.
loopholes.
Sorry.
Water goes off, I know what to do. I did have a couple questions, just because it's a lot for the rookie on the table. And thinking with sort of a compassionate heart. I mean, these are our townsfolk, right? These are people we live and walk with day in and day out. The $6, I'm definitely all on board with you, because if your water's getting turned off, the chances of you not being able to pay the $6 is probably pretty significant. I'm not trying to sway anyone. I'm trying to gain clarity for myself by thinking out loud, and I apologize, Mayor, if I'm out of line. And then the question, which brings me to a couple questions. There's a $20 turn on or reconnect fee, and there's also a turn off fee in the event that you want to turn back on. Or is it all just at 25?
$20 connect fee, reconnect fee is what it's called.
And is that the same fee for, like, if I'm new to town and I say, hey, you just come and turn my water on and I pay my bills?
No, that's a $15.
$15?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's been a while since I moved here, so I was curious. And then, how long, I got two more questions, I'll be quick. How long is it before I'm going to say we, so I don't want to point at any one guy that the whole townspeople are coming after, before we turn someone's water off?
It's like you don't pay your bill by the 10th, and depends upon the dollar amount, because like Reagan said,
Just a normal home, like an average four-person home. Say it's $75 for 2 months, 3 months.
2 months, it'll be $75, yeah. It's once it reaches that threshold and it's delinquent. So there's a
Okay.
couple of factors. And also, if it's your first time in a rolling 12 months, we don't shut your water off because, as he said, with the $6 fee, things happen. We're not going to
Right.
shut somebody off for a first.
And I'm not
Late.
putting you on the spot, ma'am. I'm really sorry, but this next question really kind of speaks to the heart because I worry about this. Are there no-go months that we will not shut your water off? For example, like August. It is blazing hot in North Carolina, and that red clay is not helping people. And people need to stay hydrated, or December, January. And if there's a place I can find these answers, I'll go research. But I looked and I couldn't.
There is not a standing month
But we-
because sometimes in August it's 110 degrees and
Yes, sir.
sometimes that happens in July or June.
Right.
We've had instances, we did not do shutoffs. Shutoff occurred, I think, within days of when Chantel came through. Number one, our own staff was out repairing sewer lines and water lines and doing stuff.
Awesome.
But number two, obviously, challenges of Chantel.
Right.
There was a time that the town was not shutting off in December. Sometimes shut off in December. Obviously, with 25th being the month, Christmas falls, it's extremely difficult.
Yes, sir.
However, we then started running into January shutoffs that were
Probably more brutal.
significantly larger and brutal and harder for people to catch up. So we
Right.
will.
Thought, I understand. I was just trying to get a cheap,
It's
quick
hard to
answer.
make a hard. Yeah, it's hard to make. It's difficult to make a hard and fast rule that's going to capture the scenarios like that.
The people that go out there actually have to engage.
Case basis, like the government shutdown.
Assumed, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, making the decision at that point that shutoffs weren't appropriate.
I remember
Thank you.
back 2020, we did a suspension for
Sure.
COVID, I think.
The
we're gonna
suspension
draw
during
for a full
COVID, as an
weekend.
example. Yeah.
There are some considerations of when the 25th falls, because like I said, if it's close to a weekend or close to a holiday, and it won't give the team, like if you come and you pay your bill at 3 o'clock and we're shutting everybody off on a Friday,
Yeah, the
there's
worst
not gonna
thing we
enough
can do is
time
do
to
a
shut
shut-off on
everybody
a
back
Friday.
on, and then it's a holiday or it's a weekend, so.
I assume you all had safeguards. I was just trying to quickly educate myself because I'm going to have to say yay or nay here in a minute.
Well, and Debbie
Reagan's
did
kicked me
text me
twice.
back, the average bill is between $60 and $90. It depends if you have sewer and if you're in city limits and you're on trash service.
So I think the intention from this council prior to you being here was always that the shutoffs were going to be a temporary solution, but the late fee was hopefully a permanent decision. But since that decision was made, or since that vote was made, you and I had specifically talked about some of the accounts falling behind and some of, if there were efforts made to mitigate accounts growing during shutoffs being suspended, just so that accounts were not going to, become unbearable. So I'm interested in if anything has been done, and if we can, this seems like an opportunity for, in the Sustainavate program, if there is a staff idea about how we can be better, more civil, consistent about collecting, spreading it out, whatever it is, I think that this council would love to hear that.
Well, since we suspended, and as we do in the past when we have time, we call, hang door tags, which has sometimes not been accepted well because people are embarrassed because there's a door tag on it, but we're just trying to communicate. And if we don't get a response from an email or we don't have a good phone number, we want to be able to engage people because we want them to call and give us a good phone number, give us a good email, because people do. I mean, I get spams in my personal emails and I might just change it in a month and not think to update my water department. We had a former council member that we figured out that he had a leak and we didn't have a good phone number for him, but since I had communicated with him with my phone, I called his cell and he was like, oh my gosh, we're going to update that now. And so, a lot of people change their emails and their cell phone numbers frequently, and it's hard for us to keep up. So sometimes the door tag is our last, and maybe the right thing is not a yellow door tag, maybe just a white one that would blend in and just say, we need you to contact the office, because most people associate that color of that door tag with that I'm doing something wrong,
Well, the
but
red one is the shutoff, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Green would be great because it would blend in.
And it's a
with the
pleasant color,
foliage.
yes.
And nobody, yeah.
Blue for water, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, we can,
Blue, green, yeah.
we can try a different color just say, please contact the office or update your contact information. But we have been when we have time, again, we call, we email, we hang the dreaded door tags, but and I think in the numbers, it might have reflected because
Yeah.
in January, it went down.
Okay,
So we feel like we are, I mean, the effort's being made.
good. Okay, so it has actually, your all's work has helped for some of the accounts to just get paid, because sometimes people just forget. I mean, they just,
Yeah.
yeah, they downright ignore the bill. I'm sure we've all been guilty of that. And the only other issue I see is that when I open up my water bill or even have looked at like the past due notices, we have an abundance of options on how to pay. And sometimes there's so many options that it becomes difficult, right? I mean, it's call this number or go online or call this number if it's after hours or or come by the office. But if it's not during these hours, then don't come by the office. I mean, it's a lot. So yeah, I think you guys are doing a good job, but I'm also open to ideas if there's ways that we can do it better.
Well, the call-in is, we have some people that don't have computers or don't want to, I don't pay anything from my cell phone,
But
but
it's two different numbers, one to set up recurring and one to actually just pay your bill. Yeah, so it's just,
And there is a lot on the bill. Some of that is actually statutorily required.
Yep.
And some of it is an effort to try and provide those options and things too. It's a difficult balancing act, and you're trying to fit it all on a mailable type of thing.
Yeah.
I will say that the CP Pay and the automatic sign up has been a huge help. And we're seeing more and more, we're seeing a better uptake on that almost monthly.
yes. Yes.
good. Does council have other questions for staff?
For the time that he put into view as well, Tess, looking at the data and putting it all together. And speaking personally, I know my bill always runs somewhere around better than $70. And I try to be as frugal as I can in that little house. But I do like the $100 minimum delinquency amount before shut off.
And I do want to be clear, because I embedded it in the language and I mentioned it in my memo. Once you go over the 100 and you reach shut off, the entire account needs to be paid. It's because I know what Debbie will deal with. I hate to even suggest it, but come in and pay everything so that you're at $99 each month, and that's just, to have to chase that after a handful of customers it's not fair.
But I agree. I like having that threshold, because then it prevents that 1 month mistake from turning into a water shut off in a situation where you've got, a disconnect fee and a hard learned lesson.
And I just want to add to that as well, because I know that residents watch the videos. It's always possible to come in and pay part of a bill. The bill is 70 something. Well, I only got $30. So let me give you this 30. I'll come back next week and I'll pay 40 more or whatever, because sometimes you just can't handle a whole bill. Income, whatever. So, yeah.
And if, to Reagan's point as well, if you don't go over that shut off threshold to where you have to pay all of it, you can go in, you can just don't hit that threshold and pay it at your own pace. Yeah, when the money's available. Yeah. Thank you for crafting language that I think is appropriate, Reagan. Tess, thank you in the water department for all your all's work. Do you all need, you do need a motion. How much language do you need in that motion?
Just simply to adopt ordinance 3160, which will take care of everything we just talked about.
Okay.
Well, with great, go ahead,
One
Bill.
question. I didn't see anything in here about the 2 months. Where's that in this, or in this? It talked about the cutoff and then the $100, but it didn't say anything.
So the language relative to not $6 that are in other sections of code that aren't changing as a result of this.
Gotcha, thank you.
So I just,
Are we looking to do away with the $6? Is that what we, yeah, okay, good.
the language
I mean,
that's
yes. And then the $100 threshold as well, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
what you're looking at on the screen, section
Oh, you already did it.
50.005 of the code, if you look at the current version of it, it talks about the $6 and the 10th of the month, and you'll note that there's no reference to either in that.
Okay. That's awesome.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve ordinance 3160.
Well, with great pleasure, I'd like to approve, or like to make the motion to approve ordinance 3160, updating our town code regarding utility late fees and shut-offs.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to our council updates and discussion regarding, yes.
Say, this is a tough issue, and thank you for your thoughtfulness that you put into it and that you put into it too. And I don't know that there's a more humane department on earth than the finance department and the work that they do. I've watched them put people on payment plans. I've watched them work with people. I've watched them let people come in and pay partially. I've watched them get yelled at because somebody's mad about their bill. So I think I appreciate very much the clarity, and this is a pretty cool compromise. I appreciate being rid of the $6 fee, which was not worth anybody's time to chase. And I think this levels the field and doesn't create a regressive tax with the late fee. So it's really thoughtful. It's great. Thank you.
Discussion regarding outdoor special event permitting.
Where to begin? And we've got Deputy Chief Heaton with us. I think Greg's here also. I think the memo outlined it, but we've had a couple of different circumstances recently that have brought to light a much larger, longstanding conversation amongst various departments within the town staff. Specifically, and I don't want to get into the details so much, but it might ring a bell for you, or at least you'll understand when I reference. We continue to speak with Sandhills Bogies about utilization of one of our ballparks and hope to have something in front of you next month regarding that, because it is advancing quite well. But they are an example of an organization that would have an interest in being able to sell, in their case, beer and maybe wine, I'm not sure, at their ball games. We also separately had a local festival approach us about potentially relocating to Southern Pines. One of their issues, however, was the ability, again, to do alcohol sales on town property as part of an outdoor special event. As it turns out, that particular festival very, very recently said they would not be moving in the coming year. So you won't see anything more on that, at least in coming months. They actually had a very specific interest because of specific sponsorships they had of extending some of our allowances for beer and wine to spirits or liquor. So you can think of, we have a local distillery that might wish to sponsor an event or something, but wouldn't be able to actually do so if that event is taking place in one of our parks or town property. So the current code has some very narrow allowances. You'll recall we recently had conversation when the farmers market was in front of you about selling closed types of alcohol, not to be consumed on site or at the farmers market, and council accommodated that at that time. And you've got some very specific allowances in the central business district. So essentially downtown park, and then the closure of streets for things like First Friday, very well-known event that actually falls under an OSE permit and does allow for the sale of beer and wine at those events. So I outlined for you kind of the items. BJ, if you could scroll that up just a little bit so I'm not digging here. Up, thank you. A little bit further down, I was looking for those 3 items that I outlined on there. No, back down. Yes. Perfect. Thank you. So really the three items for question before the council, if you wish to make a change, and again, there's no requirement that you make any changes, but as a result of the various things that have come before us, and then I'm going to ask if Greg has anything to add on behalf of kind of Parks and Rec, and he comes to us with some experience in departments that have allowed and actually utilized these types of things for revenue generation. And his predecessor, Cindy King, I know, was working toward addressing this with the town council before she left, and eventually we brought Greg on hand. So he can talk a little more in detail about that. But the three items really that have come before us out of users that would be challenged as the code is currently written is one, the type of beverages, as I said, allowed under an OSC permit. Do you wish to expand that beyond just your typical ABC license? And Deputy Chief Heaton could address that a little further if you have questions. Number two, your current limitations are to not-for-profits or nonprofits. One of the things that either Greg and or Chief Cameron, Assistant Manager Cameron, oftentimes is asking applicants for is proof of their nonprofit status. In order to get an OSC, in order to be able to allow for alcohol sales at an event. But again, not every entity that is looking for these happens to be a not-for-profit or nonprofit. And then finally, whether the current allowance for sale and distribution that is limited to the central business district. So again, that was done with the downtown park in mind. The council at that time was looking at an event that was tied to the Veterans Parade and some fundraising that was taking place at an event. That's when that specific change was made. But again, within the central business district, you'd also be looking at that area in front of the Sunrise Theater that gets used for First Fridays and occasionally other events. Whether you have an interest in extending that beyond kind of that central business district area. So again, you could do that in a very limited fashion and pick and choose venues that you might allow it. You could also set just kind of the general rules and then any OSCs that come through regardless of location, or I shouldn't say regardless of location, the location for which the OSC is being requested could be taken into account as to whether an event with alcohol might be allowed and under what circumstances it might be allowed. So depending on the location and the event that is being requested, it could drive things like the number of officers that may need to be hired off duty for the event. It could drive things relative to the use of the barricades and closures and different traffic control that an event may or may not require. So again, it would just be a more general set of guidelines and rules that could be followed by staff when looking at events. Greg, anything you'd like to add relative to some of your thoughts with the parks and events you've seen other recreation groups put on or utilize?
Not necessarily. I will say both of our peers sort of here in the county, Aberdeen, Pinehurst, do have some version of this where
Would you come to the mic?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was hoping to stay on camera. We'll see.
No, we definitely want you on camera, Greg.
Parks and Rec Director, if you're watching.
Yeah, I think Reagan highlighted it pretty well. I mean, this is pretty commonplace in Parks and Recreation nowadays. I will say our peers here within the county have some version of this where they have recreation programs. Aberdeen has their specific set of rules, Pinehurst has theirs, but they are allowing versions of this within their park system as well. I'd have to go back and look specifically what their guidelines are. So I think the bigger question in my mind here is, where does the control lie? Are we going to put that control within the guidelines here in our code, or are we going to have a broader code and then have guidelines internally on how we apply that?
I guess the big question I have, and look to Attorney McCarley, because I know I don't want to have a policy that is sort of by right. So my first question is, what currently is the filter? So if somebody's like, hey, I want a special event permit, because somebody's saying yes or no against a criteria. And to what element do we have the ability to say, you know what, I just don't like your idea, and I don't think we need it in Southern Pines. I can't be that way, because I know then it'd be discriminatory probably claims. So how does that happen to where somebody, it's not us, because we've never made a decision yes or no to a festival. Somebody is. So what's the current rule for, here's my idea, I get a permit or do I not? And is there a human element to that, to whether you think it's good or not?
So again, that's sort of the OSE permit process that we have internally, which is not an easy or quick thing in most cases. And relative to sort of what can get you turned down, there's any number of things. But it also depends on what you're asking and where you're asking. It's one thing to get an OSC to do something in the park, which there's a reason we require the OSC, because you are literally kind of setting the park aside for an event, and that takes it out of the public realm sometimes, depending on the event, if you're just looking to come by with the kiddo and play in the playground. However, that is, I'm going to say, less, I hate to use the word less impactful, because it depends on the event, but that is less difficult to review and contemplate all of the specifics of versus a street closing or event like a parade through the downtown is a pretty significant OSE that has to be looked at. And that has grown exponentially in recent years with the need to look at barricades and officers and just some of the events that you see occur around the state and the nation. So it's entirely conceivable that an event that we might find to be perfectly fine in a downtown park is not an event that we might allow out on Broad Street in front of the Sunrise, for instance, because again, you start talking about closing streets and limiting transportation through an area, limiting access to the front doors of businesses and things, and all of those considerations have to be taken into account. I don't want to steal Mac's thunder, but I wanted to give him an opportunity to build it a little bit, I guess, relative to the question of due process and really review of applications as they come in.
I mean, yeah, to continue that, because there's certain things from like, sure, downtown is great, but Pool Park, Sandhurst, Rounds, they're all in and around neighborhoods.
Right.
And so the
Exactly.
filter's different.
I've looked at the process, and there's nothing about it that
Is it on?
strikes me as content-based. It's all pretty much around the size of the event, what you're going to do there, does it have any potential for damaging the property, public safety, cleanup. It's a relatively operationally based policy.
And then to that realm, per your point number 2 here, I guess the not-for-profit creates a nice break for what or whom may ask. And then I'm thinking, I don't know what your festival you're referring to, but there are festivals all over the state of North Carolina that will generate a lot of visitors and a lot of interest in business that may be for profit. And so to what arm are we able to sort of set that line where, okay, that one is beneficial to our town, we will allow it, but not this other one? Would that put us more towards a content based due process, or no?
No, what's going to get us in trouble is if we left it at, say, nonprofits, and you'd say yes to a church group, but no to a veterans group because you didn't like their message. That's the kind of thing that'll get you in trouble. But profit versus nonprofit is not likely to get you in trouble. And in fact, many of the festivals that travel around are now commercial enterprises.
Yeah, I just would want to make sure that we don't inadvertently, if we allow one, if we change the rules to allow something that, I mean, I don't know what it is, but if there's something in mind, they're like, hey, this would allow this to come, it couldn't now, we set it to where that could happen, that it opens up to other things that aren't as beneficial. And art is a great idea, but we can't say no because we've changed. So I just want to be careful.
I think as long as we stick to the operational type criteria that OSE currently uses, we're fine.
Thank you.
Real quick, number one, I think done correctly, it's a great idea. I think the upsides to, like you were saying, town awareness, downtown small businesses, every time we have a venue down there, it's great. Some of the things that I was just, the precedent that we set here today as elected officials is very much different than we're really not managing this like as elected officials. So however we craft this, we clearly got to identify who's doing what and who's responsible for what so that we can answer to those that would question our decision here today, which is, I'm okay with saying, yeah, this is a great idea. This is really beneficial to our town. Couple quick questions though. With every great event, there's an impact on security, fire and rescue's ability to get in and out of facilities. I know that's something that we probably need to just flesh out. Actually, that's really the staff. I mean, we got a great staff. But just something that I think about getting fire and rescue people into there. We've all been to venues where we're like, Jiminy Crickets, something goes down, man, I hope there's not a stampede. And I know our staff will do that. And we talked about parks and things like this. Councilman already brought up some parks. I would really be disappointed, and I know this would never happen in our town, if we put an event somewhere where there was a youth, flag football that goes on every Saturday, and then maybe their championship game's upended and now they're across town. So I think just whoever the approving authority is that says yes, they'd say, hey, yeah, but you know what, at 10 o'clock, we got, the girls' flag football, and their teams are traveling in from Charlotte and everything to play Southern Pines and West Southern Pines and Aberdeen and all the little teams that we already have. And then,
Before you leave that point, I think our answer is that the OSC permit process requires several different departments to look at it before it gets signed off on.
yes, sir,
So
good.
exactly that kind of thing gets looked at.
I suggest he's already looking at our OSC permit application because you just named key departments that are involved in the process we already have in place.
Right. And then just last thing, from our perspective, all right, so Southern Pines, we have a business model on how we're going to, function, operate as an organization to better the health and welfare of our people, our constituents. Obviously, by bringing these great venues in here, and I know people are going to want to come here and set up their venue because we just got great townspeople, is our only source, is our intent to ensure that, number one, we're getting the awareness that we deserve as a great small town or great, town here. And are we charging fees for like closing off all of, let's just say, downtown Southern Pines? And I don't need the answer, but that's something that, obviously when we give all the thumbs up, we want to make sure, because at some point there needs to be I think one of the other council members said it before, a give and take. And again, if that is in this OSC checklist, I obviously need to get on my A game and go find this
Yeah, the
checklist.
general answer to that is yes, there is ongoing discussion around the concept of co-sponsorship and what that means relative to a couple of events historically. But yes, there are fees associated with things like
Yeah.
barricade placement, extra duty police officers, sometimes extra duty fire. There are absolutely fees associated with that.
And those fees are taken up by the party that wants to set up the
Correct.
event. Yep. I think it's a great idea. I loved it when I first heard it, but those are just some questions that were kind of sitting in the back of my head. I just wanted to flush out for my own sanity, if you will, sir. By the way, it's good to meet you across the table.
Yeah, and just to highlight what everybody said here. So again, all these things are already, when we have an OSC, they have to turn in a map with what the festival or event is going to look like, which goes to Chief Polidori, Chief Cameron. They look through that from a safety perspective. So we do a lot of those checks and balances already. As far as like interfering with other events, if there was someone that wanted to do an event that happened to be the same day as, let's say, flag football, we would say, no, you have to choose a different day or a different location, right? Like a lot of that's already internally managed through our reservation software. And the other thing that I would think about is, the process to have alcohol in the park system, it's not, I wouldn't go through it for my birthday party, for what it's worth. You got to go to Raleigh, you got to get a permit through them that Chief Polidori signs off, and then you can do the OSC. Then you still have to review a safety plan, which again, it gives us hurdles to do it. So the people generally, and we don't have a ton of these, I'll be honest with you, but we also don't have the flexibility to have a lot of them. So the hurdles that are in place now are the people that are wanting to do it are ones that are already doing this in other areas, have done it before, are generally professional organizations, they're event planners and things like that, that know what to provide when they put in their application.
Yeah,
So
and to be clear, in reaction, you had made in your statements, Councilman Curtin, decisions we make today All we're looking for today is some guidance on the 3 items I tried to outline here, because as I placed in the memo, depending on what council is interested in further considering or pursuing, there are multiple sections of code that need to be reviewed and touched by Attorney McCarley. This one is not as straightforward as what we just did with the utilities. So this is really just an opportunity for council to talk about it. What might you be comfortable with? And when it comes back in final version, you may be less comfortable with it. But it's really just to get some direction relative to kind of these 3 items or any others you might want to throw out. But these are the 3 that came to mind as a result of a couple of the events and contracts and management agreements that we're currently looking at that we know need to be addressed as a yes or no, because it may change what we're talking about or whether we need to talk next month relative to some of these things. So
I'll just say, so far our discussions have all been around 2 and 3 points, I believe. As to point 1, to your knowledge, for other municipalities that have extended to spirits, is there any noticeable difference in the alcohol-related negative incidences going from beer only to beer and spirits?
I wouldn't know that. That'd be a better question for Deputy Chief Heaton or Chief Polidori the next time we can ask him.
So to answer your question, I'm not aware of any. I've not done any research or reached out to other agencies that do serve the spirits. I would say that I think it's fair to assume that the problems related to alcohol consumption, the higher the level of consumption, the higher the alcohol content an individual has, then that does directly relate to some of the issues related to alcohol sales. But I can't give you any specifics related to anyone that's doing spirits.
and that's the kind of thing we could try to look for some replies or responses on if council was interested in further pursuing that concept. But I can't speak to, I couldn't even give you a list right now of a half dozen communities that have extended it to spirits or not. That's something that'll take a little bit of research.
Isn't there a change? Don't you move to the ABC board once you put spirits into the mix?
It's a different permit
Does it become a
entirely.
totally different
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah, so basically the distillery already has a permit, so what they have to get is just an extension to sell at that location.
To be able to sell at that location? And what sort of, they don't have to go back to the ABC board then? That doesn't have to happen once they have the permit, or they've been permitted to function as a distillery and they've jumped that hurdle. In order to jump a hurdle where they're selling spirits at a public park here through an event, they don't have to jump through ABC board hurdle again.
They do, they have to get an off-site permit.
Yeah.
Off-site permit is the exemption, but that's something that's a whole new logistical problem for them.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so do we have access to the ABC board's checklist that they would use in those circumstances?
I'm sure that's kind of outlined as to what the requirements would be. I'm sure
I
we
would be really interested in seeing that. And did I miss it? Was there an OSE just checklist that we currently use that was included in our packet that I'm supposed to have access to and I just blew it?
I don't think it was included in the packet, no.
I would love to see our checklist, if that's something I'm being asked to make a call on. And I would also be interested in the hoops that one jumps through for the spirits, and to be really careful that we are treating people fairly across the board, whatever we're going to do. And I think that this discussion was born out of a little bit of an urgency, because there was some quiet discussion about a possible event changing venues and considering us as a possible site. But I think that's off the table, is what I'm understanding.
So we have time.
So we have time, and I think that it's real. I think this is going to be a little bit like being a first day teacher in a classroom. You don't want to go in super nice because you can't back up and be mean. You want to go in mean and then let the nice come on later. So I think we should be really clear what we're doing, what our rules are, how we're doing it, what we're looking at as far as a checklist, what all the parts of the machinery are, and that we make a decision that we can stand by or that our kids can stand by in 25 years. And so I'm also interested in looking at events where alcohol is given away for free, which happens. I'm really concerned about that and whether or not we have something in place. So I'd like to, I'm all about this being a welcoming place, and I'm all about all of you being safe and all of you being safe and all the kids being safe. And again, I'd love to see the checklist. I'd love for everybody to be safe.
Yeah, and only because you and I have had some conversations, I think I know, I have an idea of what you're referencing relative
Right.
to events that give away.
Right.
I would, I don't want to say caution, but sometimes it's individuals who are participating in an event that might be doing that. It's not so much that there's an
An entity.
like an entity. Those are not permitted events through the town.
No, I understand.
Those are marketing campaigns that, so it's
I understand.
a little different situation from this, but I understand your question
Right,
too.
I know you do, and you and I have talked about this, and I think that, I think there should be something that keeps me from standing on Broad Street pouring glasses of wine and giving it to people.
All right, so I think it's starting to, we're getting into the territory of if we allow drinking at all. And I think that, let's be real clear that this is on private property. You can have events and you can go through the ABC permit. There are still hoops. We're just deciding if it's going to be allowed on public property. It sounds like there's a litany of things that you're hearing from council that we would like for you to come back on. These 3 items, I'd actually love, if other areas are already doing this, just follow up with us on these 3 areas. Like, what are the other people doing? Like, if someone went to have a wedding at Whitehall and have wine, as of now, you cannot do that. So, with a nonprofit, you also couldn't do it. Like, let's figure out what makes sense and like, who has done this and how is it
What is
working?
Weymouth doing?
Sure, yeah.
What is Campbell House doing?
Just very quickly, you will have 2 items coming before you in the near future that will implicate this issue. You remember having a conversation with Kevin Drum about his lease of the trackside property. And we're hoping to bring the Bogies deal before you pretty quickly. And that too will have alcohol in it. So you're going to have 2 versions
Bogies
of this.
deal, I'm sorry, I cut you off. If the Bogies deal, as you and I have talked about this, on the contract that we are talking about putting into place with the Bogies, is it currently jumping through the hoops that we already have in place, or would we need to change our code in order to comply with the contract that you are negotiating?
I think we're going to have to change the rules.
Okay. So I think that's really important. And I think a glass of beer or a beer belongs at a baseball park. I mean, I'm not going to fight that, but I also think it's, you and I have talked about that, my concerns about public safety, my concerns about how are we going to exist in that area that's plopped right in the middle of neighborhoods, and there are young kids nearby, and I love some of the things you've already talked to me about, that you're clearly thinking in that way. But I would feel so much better if I could see what the hoops are. And I appreciate, and I would love to hear, Greg, any other history that you know from having worked with events like this, what works, what doesn't work, what are your concerns, what are your reservations, if there are any. Talk to it. Where have you been? What do you know? You clearly know more than I do about this.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. No, I think for my history, a lot of what I've done comes from bigger municipalities, bigger organizations, right? So the overarching process is still the same. A lot of the differences are internally, right? So what we would define as an organization are what are the things that would disqualify you for, or us saying, no, you're not allowed to have this event, change from organization to organization, right? I've seen it from, is it the number of people, in previous jobs, if you had over 50 people as part of it, you were also required to get an assembly permit because that triggered another level of police, response if that was something was to happen. I've seen it at 100 people.
Were there also stipulations in contracts then that you were also to pay the hourly rate to have an officer on based on the amount of people who were involved? So 50 people, you need to hire one officer. 100 people you hire to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's part of the OSE process. You put your estimated attendance, it goes through the police department, fire department. They look at it and
Okay.
say, okay, we need 3 people for this event and 1 for this one, or whatever it may be.
Okay.
They fill out the extra duty officer process. That comes out to a total. Again, you know,
Okay.
we sort of already doing that. We're already doing that. But again, you know, those things, a lot of the differences exist within the organization and how they want to make those judgments, right? So you still have to get ABC permits, whether you want to do it or not. It's just which state you're in that you're doing it. And for me, I've been in a couple.
And the ABC permits are specific to spirits, or in both cases, also beer and wine.
Yeah, it's different.
Two
for each
different
one.
levels.
2 different
Right.
things. Yes,
Right.
exactly. You know, and it's different whether I know, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but I think it's different for if you're selling it versus if you're if you're an event manager and your vendor individually has to sell
I
it.
think there's, 32 different applications. I mean, it's
It's
lot of
gonna be
different
a
levels and
just
different-
right, to understand logistically what needs to happen. And I think, I mean, I refer back to Mr. Pate's question. I think he was kind of on the same track as far as what's the process? How do we do this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed. I want to understand it and I want to do it right.
I will offer only because I think it'll be before you next month also. Mac, you had brought up Kevin Drum. I think we're good on that one, and I say that based upon an exemption for leased properties relative to consumption, et cetera. And because 305 Trackside operated there for many years, I know we made some changes back when we leased it, but let's review the code and verify that. But I think we're in good shape.
The answer is unless we prohibit it in the lease.
Exactly.
It is allowed. But having had this conversation, I want y'all to know up front that you're going to be approving a lease that will have alcohol allowed.
Right. Otherwise would fly in the face of basically what he's trying to do, which I think we all understood. Okay.
I appreciate you guys bringing this up. I know it is a very complex issue, and I appreciate that we don't have a time constraint pushing us to make this decision quickly. Sounds like Kevin Drums would be the quickest because the bogeys are not until next year as well. If you all can get together, come up with some answers, guidelines, recommendations, that would be awesome to bring to us. And then if you all want to send it out to council so that maybe us individually, if we have deep diving questions or specific things we'd like to have brought up at the next work session, we can have all that all prepared and just keep working through this process. I'm not in any rush to make an approval, but I think it's an important conversation.
I think the point you made before, Mayor, about what some of the other towns are doing would be great. You know, then we can kind of look at what they're doing, make any type of changes we need to make for Southern Pines. It's more applicable for us. So,
Learn from our neighbors if we can.
yeah.
Thank you guys. Unless there's other questions, we'll move on. Okay. All right, next on our council updates and discussion, we have the Whitehall site work update. Greg, is that also you?
Jessica.
Okay, Jessica. All right.
7 and 8-year-old basketball players that need their coach.
All right, very good.
Go team.
Go, win-win.
Or have fun.
Good evening, Jessica.
Endo.
Afternoon, I'm not sure what it actually is. Or,
Getting ready to cross that line.
yes,
Happy New Year.
that too.
Thank you. So I'm going to give a little bit more of an in-depth overview for Councilman Curtin's benefit since hasn't heard a project update. But I have a memo today that I wrote this morning for this update. And when we were last here with you, it was in August, and we had bid out the site work that was necessary to open the carriage house and receive a certificate of occupancy. And we had held 2 different bid advertisements for that work. We received no bids on the first advertisement, and on the second one, we received a single bid of $1.1 million, which was approximately double the cost estimate that our engineering and architecture firm had provided. We had attempted to negotiate with that contractor as the state law requires, and had gotten it down to like $950,000. We just felt that that was not a financially responsible bid. It was well over what we had budgeted. And so our recommendation to you back in August was that the town essentially serve as the general contractor, and that we find some subcontractors who could come in and handle different aspects of that work. And we also felt that there was some work that we could handle on our own. So you all directed us to handle that in that manner. And then we had indicated that we would come back when we had more of a financial update on where we might be. So we are at that point now. So since August, Graham Purcell, our Parks and Grounds Superintendent, has largely been taking the lead on this and kind of serving as our GC and meeting with different contractors. The first work that needed to happen in terms of the sequencing was some limited tree removals in order to install the new driveway as well as the parking lot behind the carriage house. That work was actually scheduled to be completed today. So if it's not finished today, it'll be this week. And that work was going to total just under $35,000. The next bid that he has received is going to cover the bulk of the scope that is needed, and that'll be the final clearing and grading for the new driveway that's going to come from Elizabeth Rounds and circle back in front of the carriage house. It'll also include the installation of the parking lot, some drainage under the road, as well as the hardscape that surrounds the carriage house. So when you come out of the doors, there will be pavers or sidewalks and that type of thing. Really, the only thing that is not included in this second bid that he has gotten is the actual asphalt topping, because this company does not do that. So we would need to get a second company to do that. And then there's some other small scale things that we will handle on our own, like installing water fountains and signage and different things like that. So this bid that he has received for that work that I just described is a little over $305,000. So with those two bids together, it's like $340,000. So we're well under that $1.1 million that we had initially received. We would still need to get the second bid for the asphalt, and I don't know what that number will be, but significantly way under that. So what we're kind of here today to recommend and ask for is, right now we have a project balance of just at $250,000 available for the carriage house site. With these two bids of $340,000, that gives us a shortage of around $90,000. And so we would like to put forward a budget amendment at the February meeting in order to shore that account up so that we can actually award that site bid and get them working. They are available now, so they're just waiting for us to issue a PO. We would then get the quotes on the asphalt and the other things that need to be purchased and come forward then with a second budget amendment to finish that whole project out. But we would like to get this one expedited so that we could award that contract. And so while I am here to ask for more money, I do feel like this is a positive update compared to where we were back in August. And I'm actually optimistic that we may be able to complete this right at or under the pre-bid cost estimate that CPL had prepared. They had estimated about $540,000 for all of this work. So with the bulk of it right now coming in at $340,000, I think we're in pretty good shape, which is a good place to be right now.
That is great. And it's much better than the initial, not estimate, but the one bid we got.
Yes.
For fiber,
Yes.
are individual property owners in charge of putting fiber in normally?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And so what my recommendation there is, we just want to put the conduit in, and it would make sense to do that with the road grading. And then we also know that cell service at Whitehall is very poor. And so we're going to need to do something in order to put AV and different things like that out there. And, you know,
Be
like,
able to put that in under the road?
well, that was why we would put
So
the
we-
conduit in.
Right.
Under the driveway is
The
probably
driveway,
a
so we
better
wouldn't
term
have
for it.
Poles and,
Yes,
trees
so
coming
we'd
down
like to do
poles.
that now, yeah.
I like it.
So we just need to, it will not take us, we literally met this morning, and that was brought up by Darren Johnson, our facilities superintendent. So we just need to get that contractor to modify his bid to add that.
I think this is great. So are you, you're not asking us to authorize a budget amendment until February?
Correct.
Okay, so right now it's just informative. If you all don't have questions right now, I guess, should we reach out to you directly between now and then?
Yeah, if you have any questions between now
Would I
and
be
then.
able, not now, offline or something, just kind of sit with you, one of the planners, just, I'd love to, I know we did it on my day
Yeah,
together.
super fast.
Yeah, it was fast and furious, it was awesome, but just kind of get a feel for the long-term vision, because
Of course.
I think this is a great idea. I know you guys were all over it, but, because it goes to a couple questions that I received that I was hoping to ask, and this is one of the event venues, but yeah, I don't have any other questions, just maybe I'll reach out if that's okay, and just ask like 2, 3 questions about the long-term vision. What a beautiful piece of land, so.
Yes. Yeah, and just to give you just a really quick high-level overview, when we renovated the carriage house, it can hold 50 people, and the idea is that we can use it for some of our programming through Parks and Rec in the library, and then we can also offer it as a private rental for maybe companies that are holding retreats or small weddings, showers, things like that. And so it'll be a great asset when we can get it open, and this is just kind of the final work that needs to happen in order to get a CO and open it up. So you're welcome.
Thank you for the thorough update. We look forward to hearing more and I guess maybe seeing you again in February when we vote. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jessica.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a planning department update, which I suppose is Director Grieve. So this is a work session. It's BJ now. Oh, right. You can be Director Grieve at our next council meeting.
Regular meetings,
Yes.
Director Grieve. This meeting, yeah, BJ. Save the best for last, as always. The bring up the rear with the planning department update. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity to talk here. I'm going to hit 2 main topics. Number 1 is going to be upcoming files at the February agenda. There are only 2, but they're both have a little bit of story that I'm going to review real quick, and then I'm going to talk about Comp Plan Phase 3, because believe it or not, we are into Phase 3. We adopted our comprehensive plan in December of 2023, and we went right into implementation, which for a comprehensive plan means kind of taking the goals and policies in the document and then working on projects to make them either regulatory, some type of zoning, or some type of dovetailing in with capital planning, things like that. So I'm going to talk about that Phase 3 and talk about what we've got done and what we've got on the possible list for Phase 3. So let's start with upcoming files for the February 10th Town Council meeting. You may recall that in November, we continued again the character districts and the landscaping and the tree protection amendments. Now, for Councilman Curtin, that was going back to Phase 1 in 2024. At the end of that year, after a lot of work, we had 3, those were kind of our flagship projects for Phase 1. And what they were is the comprehensive plan called for the creation of character districts, which would identify that which makes certain areas of our community special, and then make sure those features of site design and building design are incorporated in future development to keep those areas unique, keep those areas special. That project, and then what wound up coming in at the same time, that project used some consultants, some architectural expertise. What wound up coming in at the same time was another project staff was working on, which was amendments to our landscaping code, as well as amendments to create a new tree protection requirement. And so all those came in at the same time. They came in November of 2024, and in December of 2024, the North Carolina legislature passed Senate Bill 382, which made it, summarizing, made it not okay to create anything, to adopt rules that created nonconformities, meaning if it adopted a regulation that made something prior to it now grandfathered. So let's say, for example, you had a setback that was 20 feet, and then you're going to increase that to 25 feet, and any buildings sitting out there sitting at 20 are now grandfathered, non-conforming. You can't create nonconformities, which means you can't change that setback. You could only reduce that setback. You can't increase it. If you take that same example and multiply it by all of our other design standards, it made character districts difficult, made landscaping codes difficult, and tree protection difficult. So it was continued. So you will recall in November, what we were going to do between November and February was we were going to deep dive those text amendments and see what the outcome was going to be. We will make a presentation about that on the evening of February 10th. We're prepared to do that, but I did want to brief you on it very quickly right now. Character districts are dead. There's no way to salvage those character districts under the requirements of Senate Bill 382. It's a shame because character districts were really, I guess you'd call it sort of like bipartisan, if you will, support. There was a lot of folks that felt a lot of different ways about regulations, but those were like, yeah, but we want to keep Southern Pinesy, so those are cool. There's just really no way to adopt those under Senate Bill 382. The good news is we can put it on the shelf and wait and see what happens in the future. The standards are there, the research has been done, but that'll come off the table, and in the future, if it ever comes back, public notice will have to start over, and it will have to go through the postcards we sent out to all the affected landowners, and that'll go back to that. Now, whether or not the option of either staff withdraws that application or whether or not it stays on the agenda and you deny it, that could go either way. I would maybe look to the town manager for some guidance on that ultimately, because both those ways would be acceptable because there's a staff-initiated text amendment. Now, with landscaping and tree protection, divide those into two topics real quick. They are the same file, but I'll divide those into two conversations briefly. Landscaping amendments, there were some amendments to what is Appendix F in the UDO, and Appendix F is a list of standards and very specific things for different types, recommended tree species to plant, and all kinds of neat stuff. We can salvage that. We believe that after reviewing, and the staff did a lot of homework on this. We looked at it ourselves. We did communicate with David Owens, one of our consulting attorneys that we work with on these projects. We did reassemble the focus group that created the landscaping code amendments and ran by them their thoughts, let them know about Senate Bill 382. We did have a follow-up visit with Elena, who obviously was very involved in writing it, so we had a good follow-up meeting with her. We spoke with the town arborist. And we believe that the Appendix F amendments can be adopted as is. So that can be something that we get out of this package of amendments. There's only two things in there that the arborists recommend. There are two plant species that they say, let's adopt Appendix F with two species that just need to be stricken. James will talk about that night, and he'll have a motion teed up ready for that. Unfortunately, the rest of the landscaping code amendments, as well as the tree protection, there are some.
James will talk about that, or Graham will talk about that?
James Broadwell, our staff, will talk about that. Yeah. He's the one that was doing a lot of this research and keeping me briefed on this as he went along. The best way to summarize the rest of the landscaping code amendments as well as the tree protection amendment is there is something in there that can be salvaged, but not in its current form, and the changes needed to be made are too significant to do it under the current project as it was legally noticed and it has been continued. Our recommendation on that next week is going to be that with the rest of landscaping and tree protection, we only adopt the amendments to Appendix F. That'll make the rest of it go away. We pretty quickly start a new text amendment file, and we work on the stuff that was in the landscaping code that's salvageable, some of which was loosening standards, and we don't want to do that anymore because we'll never get it back now under Senate Bill 382. So there's a handful of things we can make better. And then under tree protection, we believe there's a better way to do it where instead of creating a new requirement, a tree protection plan, which is somewhat questionable, we actually work it into our open space requirements through a series of priorities for what open space to preserve. Because if you'll recall, part of comp plan implementation in phase 1 was actually increasing the amount of open space we get with commercial development. We can now roll tree protection into that with priorities. But once again, we don't want to stand at the podium next week and say, here's a lot of changes, do this, that, and the other thing, when that hasn't been legally noticed. And we think it's cleaner to just come back. So we anticipate that we could take landscaping and tree protection and bring it back to you in about May or June with a revised, freshened version that is, we hope, will be SB 382 stamped with seal of approval, seal of okay. So that's for phase one comp plan. There's another text amendment coming for you that will involve the changes that were requested to the standards for temporary signs prior to elections, sometimes referred to as political signs.
Every sign I've seen would be in violation of what we talked about last
Well,
meeting.
Every sign you've seen would be in violation of the current ordinance, but it would not be in violation of what we're going to bring to you as a revision. In very, very briefly, the previous version that was written was 10 feet back, was 10 feet back from the edge of the asphalt, minimum, or on private property. So it has to be on private property, but sometimes private property comes right up to the edge of the asphalt, in which case it has to be 10 feet back. That wasn't working for the municipal election. It's not working for the current signs that are out there. And so what we're coming back with is something very, very similar to state requirement, where we're going to propose 3 feet off of the back of curb or edge of asphalt. And we went out and took pictures, and we assessed what it looked like at 3 feet, 5 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, and 12 feet. And yes, 10 feet it looks ridiculous. I mean, and in fact, bring it up to 3 feet. 3 feet is only because if you say no feet, if you put it right at the edge of asphalt, the sign, the little metal will go in, and the sign actually hangs over the asphalt. So we're going to push it back 3 feet. But we have a bunch of pictures to show next week with that text amendment.
Can you check, and I think I've talked to you about this before, just check with Lisa, because there absolutely is going to be a non-compliance with whatever we approve, just for ignorance or unintentionality or purposeful.
Yeah.
What is that going to look like? Because, you look around every intersection
We're gonna
right
have-
now, and they're all in non-compliance to what you're going to present to us. And so what does that mean?
We're going to need to have a sign prison.
I would say right now, most are consistent with what it will be changed to. It's only 3 feet back from the edge of the asphalt. That's it.
The lovely thing is that you're really talking about tracking what it's already a state language, which makes sense. So
Yes, it will be.
So we only have one set of rules.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yep.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I like it.
So right now, if you take a sign and put the little metal tines right at the edge of the asphalt, so that the sign itself is hanging over by this much. I wish I had pictures. We have pictures for this next week. That you don't see that actually very often. People kind of go up, and even when they put it really close, they kind of, and 3 feet. What I learned from the exercise of taking a bunch of commercial signs that we had pulled and going out and walking around different neighborhoods, carrying 10 signs around with me, it was pretty funny. And I was doing this exercise where I was putting them in different visual contexts. And I was taking pictures of them at different distances and trying to, and what I found that I was shocked by is I thought going out there, 7 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet looks ridiculous. I mean, you might as well put them back in the woods. You just can't, they're so far off. 3 feet is about where people tend to put them so that they don't overlap, because 3 feet for the sign. And so again, we'll show, and 3 feet is consistent with state statutes. That's what they say. Now, those that are for enforcement purposes, if we get a complaint, all we have to do is go out as a tape measure from the back of curb or edge of asphalt, measure 3 feet, and then do this.
Right.
That's it. That's how we enforce now. So it's much, much easier. Yeah. So, so we've worked with Lisa, we've worked with Mac, we studied the state statute about it very carefully, and it's way more consistent with state
Right.
statute.
I
Yeah.
think it's a great idea.
Okay. So the next thing is talk about comprehensive plan phase 3. Now, I came in with a list just like we normally do. And as I was preparing this list, I went through in the back of our comprehensive plan, we have an implementation plan, and we have policies that were drawn out as to be done within 0 to 3 years. And I went through this list, and as I was reviewing it, I was getting excited because I enjoy my job, and I get excited about this stuff because I have a passion for it. So I got excited because I noticed that our team in-house, has been crushing it, getting projects done over the last 2 years, and we have a handful to go. So we have completed, of this short-term priorities list, we've completed we've either partially or fully completed 57% of the stuff that was supposed to be done in 0 to 3 years. And if we wrap up phase 3, as I've listed here, we will be at 73% at the end of 3 years of that. I got to tell you something. Most of the time, a lot of jurisdictions, if they're able to adopt a plan and they get it, it goes on the shelf and they just go back to business as usual. And that's really normal, actually. I've worked in jurisdictions that did that. So I'm really proud of what our team has done. I want to take a brief victory lap by rattling some of these things off. So if you'll humor me, use the comp plan more. We do on a regular basis. Character districts, just because Senate Bill 382 was passed, I'm still going to take credit for the work our team did do to get character districts. That was beyond our control. Support housing diversity. We have been working on that. The minor 2 and minor 3 amendments are right in there. We have updated fees. We've applied for the multimodal grant. We have brought forward a tree protection project, and we have one in the works afterwards. Conditional zoning, use more conditional zoning. We've done that in 2 ways. We both encourage zoning amendments to be conditional, and we also have more things that require conditional zoning to be approved, which also does less QJ, which was another policy, was to use less quasi-judicial, excuse me, more legislative. Multifamily residential, transition it to 16 units in no more than 3 buildings, or else it's got to be part of a planned development. We haven't approved an apartment complex since the comp plan was adopted. And the reason for that is because the new way of designing it either has to be 16 times 3 or less, or it has to be a planned development. Nobody's brought in a planned development that mixes housing styles. They always want to do one housing style.
I was going to say, to your credit, they do, but they don't get to us.
That's right.
Because they bring them in and they're not good enough, and you stop them there, and I appreciate that. We all appreciate that.
And that's how we're using the comprehensive plan. We have more administrative reviews. You'll recall we do administrative reviews for architectural review. That's kept a lot of projects far more compliant to avoid coming to this group. And that's just the fact of the matter. They are far more compliant because they say, hey, if you get these 3 things compliant, we can turn it around for you in about 2 days. Otherwise, you have to go before town council. And they say, fine, we'll become compliant. Minor 2s and minor 3s are going to be administrative. We send agency referrals to far more places, and we lean on more places as for agency referrals, such as Central Pine, such as Moore County Economic Development. We have expanded open space regulatory. We have it now in commercial development as well as residential development. And we have some partners helping us with comp plan implementation. We have Reagan working on the TCC with the MPO to look at linking greenways. That's a project that the MPO has been working on. We have members of council going to the MPO meetings, and that is policy 8.7 to be more of an active partner in transportation planning. We have collaboration with Moore County Economic Development more often, far more often. They check in with us, we check in with them. And the last time the budget went through, Assistant Town Manager Roth worked with us to make sure that the comp plan was linked with the capital planning so that we looked at the policies to prioritize those things that came before you. And believe it or not, that's just a smattering. So I was really, it was like, man, unbeknownst to us, we just kind of kept the pedal on the metal, or pedal to the metal. And we just kind of kept moving along. And before you know it, I'm excited to come in and report that all this has been done. So with that said, for phase 3, put together a list here. You'll recall that you've looked at phase 1. I'm trying to talk loud enough that the mic picks up my voice from here. So you'll see phase 1 was you've seen this image before. Phase 2, you've seen this image before. These projects are updated all the % complete. Now, phase 3. Phase 3, here's what we recommend. We have.
Will you send this to us after the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay,
No problem at all. Yeah. So phase 3, what we recommend is in the comprehensive plan, it calls for at the end of 3 years to do what's called a review. The review is done by staff, and basically it takes a look at changes in legislation. We have a lot of stuff. In 3 years since essentially the comprehensive plan not was adopted, but it was being written and it was being created. In those 3 years, quite a lot has changed, believe it or not. We have Senate Bill 382 and completely changed our implementation strategy. We have changes in the housing markets. Stormwater management has become a much hotter topic. We have new elected officials. We have new appointed boards. And we have those folks that were not there during that process of creating the document. So we recommend we conduct that 3-year comprehensive plan review. We do that in-house, and we do it towards the end of 2026. We recommend We're working on the temporary signage corrections. I threw that in there so we could have an easy one to check off, so we could get that, because that's going to come in next week, right? After the planning board meeting, that's coming in next week. The temporary sign, the political sign corrections.
Month.
It's coming in February, right? It's going to planning board on Thursday.
Okay.
It's a very strange month because work session
everything's
happened
tight,
before
yeah.
planning board meeting,
Okay.
and that has thrown us off in so many ways.
Okay, but we won't see it until February.
Correct, you won't see it
Okay.
till February.
Okay.
And then right now, we're working on, Keenan has already been doing a lot of research on techniques to right-size parking. Different jurisdictions have tried things like getting rid of minimums, getting rid of the code completely, tried all these different things, and we're looking for what works best for our jurisdiction based on what other jurisdictions have tried. He's basically writing a white paper on that right now because that was in phase 2, so we were already working on that. But right-sizing parking is going to be some version of how do we avoid oceans of asphalt while at the same time not just getting rid of minimums, because if you get rid of minimums, then you're not controlling maximums. And we find right now, used to be a lot of, I won't get into that. We'll go into that later. Right-sizing parking is all about making sure that we don't have too much or too little. Tree protection measures is going to be the project that will sort of come back around as a reworking of the original tree protection plan. I spoke with our town engineer, and James and I talked about of all the ways that water is dealt with after it falls out of the sky, and there are many. We bubble diagrammed this. There's stormwater regulations, there's erosion control, there's the MS4 issue, there's a stormwater management utility, there's floodplain, there's watershed. There's all these different ways you deal with water falling out of the sky. Which of these do we have some local control, some local discretion for changing things? And of those, which of those can we do something different to help? And the discussion fell in line a lot with the housing discussion, which was not how can we find a magic bullet a silver bullet that will solve everything, not that, but how can we move the needle a little bit and make the situation better with what we do have discretion over? And so I pitched that to the planning board, and the planning board said, absolutely, given the circumstances, given everybody's attention to stormwater management issues, let's see which of these we can do something with and tinker with to move the needle a little bit, to make that situation a little bit better. We have expand housing options, which would include continuing our work on accessory dwelling units. That project is, Mason's already working on that, so that one can come in. You'll recall that one was from phase 2. We also have transitioning the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to the Multimodal Advisory Committee. That's in the comprehensive plan. And dealing with the benefits that come with that, a more focused multimodal focus for that group. And then finally, you have previously we had talked about accessory commercial units. And accessory commercial units, we've been doing research on that and finally culminated with a meeting we had with the zoning administrator for the city of Raleigh, who they adopted accessory commercial units in 2022. And we had a really, really interesting meeting with him about accessory commercial units and what works and what doesn't, and we learned a lot. And so what we decided is after 2 years of failing to get any traction with accessory commercial units, but still wanting to do something under the policy of expand business opportunities and entrepreneurship, we are going to instead pivot to just taking our current home-based business standards and looking at making some adjustments to those so that more things can be done as a low-impact, mitigated home-based business rather than full accessory commercial units. Fascinating conversation with the zoning administrator in Raleigh about what they learned after that. And if I'm not out of time, I'll tell you that story, but I'll defer to you. That's all I have to say. And what we're hoping for is, just like phase 1 and phase 2, ultimately we brought it to you and you sort of blessed us moving forward, so that when we're working on these projects and somebody says, why are you doing this? We can say, well, this is what we've worked with the town council to prioritize for phase 3 of our implementation. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're going to send that to us?
I sure can.
Could you, please?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
awesome. Thank you very much.
I can send that, and then if it pleases the council, I could bring it back on February 10th and ask for your approval of phase 3 priorities.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
You guys are doing a great job. I mean, I think it was
I love our team. Our team is absolutely so solid and so crushing it right now. I love them.
from the start of updating the comp plan to implementing it, I think you guys are doing a great job, and you see our determination and our focus on the things that need to be accomplished, and you guys are making it happen. So thank you. Do you guys have other questions for BJ while he's up here tonight? Okay, seeing none, thank you. All right, council roundtable, I think, Bill, you said that you had something.
Yeah, I was going to go
on the
first.
top of your
'Cause
mind.
I'm glad Tessa's here because she can probably give an affirmative to this. And I should have, and with Reagan here too, and I should have alerted you to this before. I just happened to think of it. So over the last month, all that stuff that happened with Cary, where their town manager was spending all this money and nobody found out, from everything I've seen, we appear to have checks and balances, and everybody kind of looks over everybody to where that wouldn't be able to happen, but also would have said, well, Cary should have had that too. Can you just like give an affirmative that we're set up, or, you know, like we've got our stuff together and that's not going to happen? I didn't think it would. It just seemed weird how that could happen, knowing everything I know about here and all the steps.
Think about, you know, I sign the checks, Deborah signs them, she sees, you know, everything's going out the door. And it's one of the reasons, like, I've been asked numerous times, well, you know, we took a credit card here, why can't we just refund them here? Because I don't have control over that refund.
Yeah.
All the money that comes out of the finance department has to be signed off by me, and if it's in a check format, it's countersigned by Ms. Grant.
And you have not provided me, nor am I requesting $500,000 spending authority.
Well, no, I knew all that, and I appreciate the affirmation of such. I just, you know, reading those articles is like, this is unbelievable. Didn't see how it would happen here, and I'm glad to hear that our systems are such that it would not. Thank you.
Thank you, Tess. Yes, Bob, what
Yes,
do you
ma'am.
have?
I had one kind of topic, and it really nests in wonderfully, and I can assure everyone we did not discuss this beforehand. But when it talks about our document, our football playbook, dare I say, our Bible, what it is that's kind of guiding us, and as well as our UDOs that we've made significant change to back in my first board here. So a couple things, and I want to first let you know that I do want to use this as an opportunity to get smarter and then provide information for those that are constantly asking me these questions. And as we've talked, I've talked with Reagan and some of you guys, as the rookie on the team, you know, the new skater on the pond, all the emails come in and my text messages blows up. But this is one that's kind of near and dear, and it's not about reopening old debates, but I think it nests in really good, especially as we're moving into phase 3, or you all are moving into phase 3. And I think if the way it's worded, we should be nested within the comp plan that we have, as well as the UDOs that are set forth and guide our historic preservation district. As we all know, our main historic district, that's the core area that helps define our town's charm. We all keep using the term Southern Pinesy, for decades, and it was last fully surveyed and updated in 2010. And as a historic preservation district, we've done great things. We're now a CLG. We've got a governance, but the National Preservation Plan that actually identified us as elements of a historic town was in 1991, and we really haven't done anything since 2010. And I think now that we're 3 years in, we're into phase 3, this is a great time to review and update our sort of our historic district planning and priorities as we go forward. It's 15 years ago, almost 16 now, in 2010, when we surveyed our town. And as you just admit, the last 4 years, a lot has changed since COVID. All right, we've got, as you said, oceans of cement out there, which is a term I'm going to use constantly now, BJ, and I appreciate that. And there's shifts in how we value our oceans and development. One of the things that I, at the same time, I'm really impressed with is the work you guys did with the Underrepresented Communities Grant Project for West Southern Pines. Phenomenal. When I was researching that, I thought that was great. The Trinity AME Zion Church, Amos Broadway Theater, and a couple other sites, magnificent. I think that's really good, and I think that could be sort of a template of how we do things successfully. So really, what I'd like to respectfully ask, nothing now, nothing for next month, ma'am. If I'm out of line, I apologize. I'm like kind of a guy that doesn't see, and I'm groping in the dark to make sure I can find the light switch. But I'd like to request that I have an opportunity through Reagan and his staff and provide us with a more detailed information at a future work site on what our plan for the historic district is going forward. Because we have great pockets, downtown. We also have great pockets on the west Southern Pines that are, as I've always said, go back to the 1900s, the early 1900s, and what a shame. Here specifically, I distilled it down to 4 things that I think, and I understand that we have a 6-month presentation or 6-month update, and Mason is our liaison, and he's the guy that is supposed to provide us with these opportunities. I'm not looking to put stuff on his plate. I'm willing to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and I don't even know if there's any heavy lifting. It might just be a 2-slide presentation, but I think what would be really good would be a brief summary of the condition and coverage of the existing survey. It's 16 years old. Any recent assessments or inventories or spot checks that have been done since then? Are we still continuing to live by that plan? If not, I think then it's time for us to go ahead and, not anytime soon, ma'am, not like the next 2 months or the 6 months, maybe it's a year, 2 years, that we start to look at updating that and provide our folks that want to move to a Southern Pines area and give them something that's a little bit more salient to what today looks like and represents. So that was plan 2. The second one is whether there's a plan or a timeline for a future update or to refresh to ensure the guidelines. I looked, because I watched a whole lot of video of previous boards, and I'm going to come out there and I use a whole bunch of mechanisms to try to put those videos into a distiller to kind of catch those keywords, and I couldn't find anything within the last several months. So I was just wondering, have you all talked about that? I'd love somebody to direct me to that. And then lastly, how the insights from the West Southern Pines project able to inform or integrate with the main district's preservation efforts. They have found out, and they've done something wonderful, and they've kind of answered probably a lot of my questions if I could just figure out how to get to that. Again, I don't want to reopen a bunch of debates, but walking the other day on the march, I had some folks from West Southern Pines asking me these questions on how we're going to preserve the historic sites, and I don't think everyone really understands what is historic, what is not, what needs to be preserved, and to a great extent, I'm learning that myself. So I clearly want to be transparent. But in order for me to, for all of us to strengthen public trust and do a better job stewarding Southern Pines, I think that if I could get some of this information and we could sort of refresh it, repackage it, and make sure that what we're providing is updated information. I'd appreciate any thoughts, ma'am, from you. I know you're the boss, and you're going to kind of shepherd us in the right direction. I am more than willing to work for you, BJ. I'm more than willing to go down and work with the Historic District Commission. Reagan, I have no issues working for you. I have a lot of time from about 04 in the morning to about 6:30 a.m. So if you guys are free, I would love to sit down. And where am I going with this? If I could take 30 more seconds, because I love our town.
And I apologize for interrupting, but you originally said you had 4 questions.
Yes.
I got summary of existing conditions from the 2010 survey. I think I missed number 2. I think was after that, because then I went into, is there a plan for updating the
Right,
historic
you
district
missed number
guidelines?
2. Sir. You missed 2. It's just sort of, have we done any recent assessments? Have we done any spot checks on that 2010 plan?
Thank you.
And the only reason, if we did or we didn't, it's just, we're using somebody else's plan that I'm sure the only guy that was probably Mike Cameron and Reagan that were actually on the board. And, to leave it just to those 2 guys amongst all the million other things that they got on their plates, unfair.
Thank you.
That's where I wanted to go, and I wanted to know that this is, I fancy myself, I'll be honest with you, sort of a tree hugger, granola eating, sometimes flip-flop wearing guy that just loves nature and history. But I also think that we have just this really quaint, amazing town. And if I have an ability, or a platform to help, I'd like to do that. So currently, Southern Pines Historic District, we got listed on the National Registry in 1991, and it's managed been primarily through the Historic District Commission, right? But they're supposed to kind of get their guidance and their direction from us, predominantly you guys as staff planners. And I know you guys are significantly integrated within them and do great things. We are managed through unified development ordinances. And really, this is what really got me on this is my first month here, we approved the ordinance in kind of grand sweeping form, right? And I understand why. I wasn't here for all the back, and I'm not upset at that at all. But now as I look and I try to make sure that I take this plan that was built in 2010, it's not matching up with our ordinances. And that 2010 plan is really not even matching up with our comp plan. So maybe we need to knock the dust off of that 2010 plan and over the next 2 years, whatever it is that the mayor directs us to do. And so I just wanted to kind of make sure that all three of those guiding documents are what is guiding us in making decisions on how we're going to look tomorrow, in 5 years, 10 years. I really do appreciate your time. And I know you guys are workhorses down there, and I'm not here to add work to your thing, but I just think if we want to better
We do.
communicate, but we do.
what we
But
do.
if we want to communicate with our townspeople, I need to speak your language, like, because, I can't rattle off every acronym in every state Senate 382. I have a cheat sheet.
I was like, wait till you come to the MPO meeting.
Oh, boy,
We're known
thanks.
for our acronyms.
But I really appreciate your time. I don't have a timeline for this because I know there's so many competing demands from the council at large. And I don't know did I do this in the right
No,
form?
I think it's great. So I think I've got a couple of recommendations. Mason, I know, was talking about updating the HDC, some of the guidelines. Yeah, so have a conversation with him. I think that will help a lot. And then the 2010 plan, what is the 2010 plan? Is it a historic commission plan? Or our
I tell you what, there was a lot to unpack there. You hit a lot of notes, and I love them all. And there's information to follow up with on all those. Actually, if I may, I think that give me some time to take those 4 things you just listed. I'd like to go back to the comprehensive plan. I'd like to look at them. And there's a few of those things that, yes, are already on our radar. We're already working on administratively. There's a few of those things that we need to talk about, the distinction between a Historic Preservation Commission and a Historic District Commission, things like
Absolutely.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's great. And then also, I think I'd like to take some of these things and maybe go to this list and maybe tuck something in there to spend a little time on the Historic District, because you're right. You're pointing out that it hasn't had much love in 10 or more years, or longer. And so it's definitely worth putting on here. Maybe it's time to give the Historic District some love and see what's out there, do a little outreach on the topic. And so that would check a lot of the boxes you just talked about, and we could bring it back for the town council to discuss as part of this, to sort of pick it apart and say, here's what we heard from Councilman Curtin, and here's what we think we can do. Here's what's already underway. Here's what this actually means versus here's what this means. So it's wonderful. I'm sitting here like, great, we can work with that. Yeah. That's why we're here.
I want to ask about a procedural thing. So sometimes when things come to us, we sort of assign them to a commission, but we are giving the commission's direction on sort of overarching guidelines, goals, that kind of thing. Does it make more sense for this to go through our HDC and for them to weigh in first, or does it come to us for direction? You guide us on how to do this.
It may.
Okay.
I would ask the council at this point, what my first reaction is, you just said a lot, and it's great. And I took notes and I wrote them all down. But to pick it apart and put it into, there's a lot of stuff there that goes in separate boxes about like procedural issues, different terminology, I would just like some time to unpack it all, and then sort of another, I guess, would be to kind of digest it and then come back and say, okay, based on everything you said, and based on what's in the comp plan, and based on what staff already has underway, and based on this, that, and the other thing, here's where all that goes. Some of it could be very much going back to the Historic District Commission and saying, let's take your expertise, because there's requirements that they have certain expertise to be on that group. And so let's take certain things that you said back to them. Let's take other topics such as the National Register Historic District versus the local historic district and sort of pick it apart and set the things that we can't work on aside, or come up with a different list of, hey, this is just a very different project. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah,
That was a long-winded way to say, okay, cool. Woof.
Let's
Give me-
look at
Give me
it.
a second. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of initiatives, and I'm aware that were put into, and I looked it up, the Hanbury Preservation Consultant business. There's a lot of things that they did in 2010 that just don't make sense today because of how we've grown as a small society. And I'm well aware of that, and I just want to be able to articulate that properly as I go forward for the next 48 meetings.
We can provide you with all that information. I know Mason is going to be thrilled to hear all this. He's going to be able to dig into this and, again, get with you. And the parts that involve just like getting smart on certain things, we'll talk about that. The things that involve coming back to the town council, going to the Historic District Commission, or just following up on stuff staff's already doing, but doing it a different way. We'll report back on all this.
Yeah, and that'd be great to, because you guys are doing so much. When I start looking at the tree preservation you're talking about, and these other things, you already we're probably a lot further down the tasks that I outlined than we're aware, just simply because we haven't, crossed the T's and dotted the I's, or I have not. So I appreciate your time and your energy, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm in no rush. So, and please call. I'm more than willing to answer questions, because probably I don't know the full scope of what is being asked of me. Does that make sense?
You're drinking from a fire hose.
Absolutely.
It happens for
And
a
did I
while.
tell you how big it was? It's monstrous. So I appreciate all your time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't have anything specific, so I'm just going to move on to Miss Deborah. Did you have anything else?
No, I went first, so I
Yeah.
can catch while Tessa's good.
Well, on that, dovetailing on that fire hose idea, the Martin Luther King weekend has been wonderful. The Sunday service was canceled because of weather.
Postponed.
Yeah, postponed, big difference. Postponed to this coming Sunday. I'm looking forward, our mayor will be there, and I'm sure the council members will be there as well.
Great service.
It is. I neglected to mention when we had our last meeting that our former councilman, Reverend Dr. Paul Murphy, was the speaker for the Saturday breakfast, and in his usual way, just spellbound us with this message. It was a wonderfully attended affair, and that's it. Big kudos to the finance team. Coming there every week, and then of course the holidays and everything else. They are a well-run machine. I mean, they are a well-run machine. Whether Tess is there or not there, Brooke is there. Everything is. It's just I'm humbled when I come in to do that duty of signing checks and seeing how our town is operating. So that's all I have. Looking forward to folks coming out on Sunday, 3:30.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Peterson. It will be at the West Southern Pines, what is it called? Cultural,
Center, yeah, so
something. I'm shame on me. Cultural and history and cultural, something cultural.
The former Southern Pines Primary School. Everybody knows what it is. Yeah.
1250 New York Avenue.
3:30 on the 25th.
3:30 on the 25th.
There you go.
Yeah.
In the auditorium. Yeah. There we go. I have four things. Two of them are old news. One is, wow, Bob, good job. And yes, I have wondered about Historic District and how we even are supposed to dovetail with them. It's sort of two different satellites moving past each other periodically. And I think that Mason is top of the heap, and I think BJ's right, he will dive in, and I think he will educate us all a lot. So thank you for setting that spark. I think that I want to go home and read Goal 8 about improving transportation, but I also am interested in the same way that Bob is interested in hearing from the Historic District, probably a lesser priority, but nonetheless an important one, is I think that we should meet with BPAC, soon to be multimodal committee, and not only hear what they're doing, but also figure out what our expectations are and share those with that committee. So I would love to have that maybe for a work session in the future, if we could hear from them and see how we can, I think it's important that we be aware or come to know what our expectations are regarding them. My third thing I was going to say is political signs are out, and I was going to suggest that we just dovetail with the state regulations, which people smarter than I have already figured out, so thank you for that. And the fourth thing I was going to mention was tree ordinance and whether or not there was a way to just do a partial implementation. So BJ, you read my mind. I thank you for that. A lot of good work going on. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Chief, are you going to give us an update this evening? Was there something else that you wanted to talk to us about, or was that, okay,
You're just having so much fun. You couldn't leave, right? Yeah. Pretty much. We appreciate you being here.
We do.
Thank you so much.
All right, unless there's any other comments for the good of the public, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Go, Bob. Go.
Third.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, guys. We will see you in February. Staff, thank you for all of your hard work.